That's right, kicking it for the weekend. It's gonna be short combined, you know. We started late. We did some trick-or-treating tonight. I put up some pictures. I'll show you the kids' costumes. They turned out really nice, I think. So
what you think about when you're born into a fire. Let them burn it out. Sell them to the richest buyer.
I actually did a small video, a TikTok video. We'll watch it here for people who don't have TikTok, on my mushrooms today. And that was this morning when I came here to get some supply. Not even this morning. It was like like this afternoon, because I didn't go to bed till like 7 a.m. or something. But just between that time and then when I came back to the office tonight, they had like doubled. The mycelium had doubled the growth. It's crazy.
Listen up now, because we're never dropping out. Beat the odds, beat the big house. The brains are bigger than the doubt. We've been thinking for ourselves, never let the truth fade away. This is bigger than ourselves, we won't let the world burn away. Burn away, we feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake up to the back of the pack, kill it anyway. To blame, haters face the world's mistakes. Wake up to the back of the pack, kill it anyway.
Oh, hey, Jennifer. We are going to we're going to a platform you probably don't have, Jennifer.
We were raised to lose the race. Wake up to the back of the pack, kill it anyway.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to watch till it cuts off, though. Thanks for joining us. That's my sister, Jennifer. The one that I torment all the time. That's the music. The timer should be... Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty close. All right, here we go. Roll the intro.
Hey daddies, it's me, the Linda Binda from TikTok. I wanted to make this video because I wanted to thank you for watching Cold Beer Confessionals with Will Bird. I think that's just incredible. I've watched a few episodes and I'm just like very intrigued. But you know what I'm most intrigued in is Big Daddy's meat stick. I heard that it's very thick, like a good old German sausage. You know, Linda and her coochie loves that. Oh, never mind. Let's not go there. Anyways, I hope you have a good show and enjoy it as you can. There's a lot of weird things that go on, especially when it comes from the realm of Linda Bindaland. So, enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Welcome, everybody. I am Will Bird. This is the Cold Beer Confessional, and I may have just found the greatest thing ever on Facebook Marketplace. It just happened to pop up while we're starting the show. Look at this. That was Linda Binda, by the way, with the intro. You can find Linda Binda on TikTok, YouTube, Cameo. She's doing the section on Jupiter, the documentary or whatever, which will be super interesting. That guy's a legit weirdo and probably needs to go to jail. Like not just be like a lot of people we just call out online because I feel like shame is a great tool to getting people to stop shitty behavior. That guy needs to go to jail. So anyways, if you don't know what we're looking at here, this is a donut glazing table. Stainless steel donut glazing table on wheels that lock for easy moving. Great condition, cash only. That sounds amazing. I wonder if it comes with glaze or if there's just some old glaze. You guys ever had fresh Krispy Kreme? Yes, it's the greatest thing on earth. When the hot sign is on, at Krispy Kreme, I used to have my other sister used to have an alert on her phone. When hot donuts come out, she got a text message that said, the hot sign is on, come and get them. It was like something that Krispy Kreme did. God, they're so good. It's like eating a glazed cloud. Don't start no shit about Dunkin' Donuts. Nobody wants a fucking cake, okay? That's not a donut. It's a cake with a hole in it. Anyways, thank you guys for joining us. I'm Will Bird. This is Cobra Confessional. I started super late. We went trick-or-treating today. It's supposed to be a Kick-only stream. I'd rather have most people on Kick, but I'm not shutting it down yet. But go to Kick if you can. Kick.com/Cobra Confessional. But we went trick-or-treating today, and then I stayed until, like, I think it was just in our neighborhood. So there was just, like, one little house left, and there wasn't even a whole lot of people participating, but they put bowls in front of all the houses there at the campground just so people could walk all the way around like the loop and stuff. And they had like one place to go, and I left, but we had a malfunction. So part of Liam's costume, I'm trying to pull up the pictures now. Part of Liam's costume was a slingshot that goes with his anime costume. Let me see if I can grab these. So I got reference photos and the slingshot had broken. The head had broken off the slingshot. So this is Liam's costume. All the way in it. So I bought a dark brown pair of scrubs because that's kind of the closest brown color I could find. That was kind of, scrubs are cheap and kind of comfortable. He's supposed to have bandages on his arm, but those are actually if you've ever had a pick line and they don't want you to pull it away, that's like the mesh that they slide up on a pick line. He's got 4 of those, so 2 on each arm. This is a cut up strips of t-shirt that I tied around his waist for his little belt thing, which we ended up making a little bit longer and fixing it later to where it hangs down a little bit longer. Then, of course, the mask I made, and then this is a slingshot that I cut out of foam, used rubber bands, and the lid off a spray window cleaner, like aerosol window cleaner, as the pouch for the slingshot. I like split it. It's hard to see back there in the back, but I like split it 5 different ways, flared it out, and then used rubber bands to attach it, and then more of the medical tape. Because this guy wears a ton of medical tape. Even his nose has medical tape on it for some reason, from an anime called One Piece. But there you go. There's Liam's full costume, and y'all saw the mask I've been making. There is a chunk missing right here, and that's because last night Ollie accidentally didn't see it and took a big chunk out of it, and there's nothing I can really do about it. That's his mask. It does work. Like, those are his actual eyes right there. He can't wear his glasses with it. Honestly, I wasn't even thinking about his glasses. I don't know, but I bought the cape online, bought the scrubs online. Everything else I either made or whatever. That's a broomstick that holds up it's a full size. Hold on, I'll just show you the photo. Here's a reference photo, but I don't think it has a slingshot in it. Oh, it might be. That might be the slingshot back there. But his slingshot, because it's a cartoon, sometimes it's like shorter, like 3 foot tall, like the thing he holds it. And sometimes it goes all the way to the ground, and he like puts it in the ground to like shoot a slingshot. It's like a super powerful. But that's the reference photo. And then that's the, what? Sorry. That's the reference photo. And then that's the costume. So I think we did a pretty good job. Obviously, it's not a perfect match at all. But hell, it probably would have been cheaper just to buy him the costume. It's not like it's a money-saving tactic. I just enjoy making the costumes. I think it's fun. And if we have enough time, I try to have the boys help me. And Liam got to paint some of his mask. And then Ollie wanted to be this weird thing. So if we go to the next one, Ollie wanted to be this. But we were told that we kind of thought about it, and the spikes weren't going to be a good idea. See these spikes coming up out of his shoulders and stuff? The spikes are absolutely not going to be a good idea because he's probably going to wear it to school, right? I've never had Krispy Kreme. You can't die until you do. You know that, right? You won't recognize heaven when you get there if you've never had Krispy Kreme. So he wanted to be this, but we can't put spikes on it. That seems pretty crazy. Not only would they get ripped off, but they're going to, he's probably not going to be able to go through a door. It's just going to be cumbersome. So he wants to be a guy with a TV head. And then he wants this like power core thing, he calls it, in his chest. It's kind of like a Tony Stark looking thing that like lights up. So we ordered him a trench coat. We were supposed to cut the tails off, but I think we forgot. We ordered him a little kid's trench coat and put him in it, and then all black. And then I made this TV head. This is not the greatest angle of it, but you can even see like the speaker grill right there and the power buttons and stuff. And then this is just the thing on his chest is just an LED puck light like this. And then it's got a remote to it, which I accidentally left with the remote earlier when they were done trick-or-treating. Got a remote to it. It takes 3 AA batteries, and I 3D printed a thing with like 3 little arms like the other one looks. See how this has like 1, 2, 3 different pieces, how it ties into his chest? With 3 little arms, 1, 2, 3. Actually, mine's upside down. I just realized that. And then put a hole in it to where he could tie some black paracord in it and wear it on his chest. And he thought that was the coolest thing. Actually, he found a button on the remote that says fade. So that's on purple. I know it shows up kind of white, but that is purple. It's just really bright, especially when it got dark at the campground. But he found this button that says fade that like makes the light go down real dim and then come up real bright, then real dim, then real bright, then real dim. It was he loved that. He's like, it's like my heart's beating. Look how cool. Look how cool. I mean, he was tore up about it. Which is the biggest part of making the costumes. Like I just want them to be blown away that I can make I'm not good at a lot of stuff. Like I don't have the patience to teach a lot of times, and I get frustrated too easy. And I know I got a short fuse, a lot of that to do with like PTSD and shit. I didn't used to be this crazy, I promise. But there's a fly in here. But if I know I can make about anything. So trying to build some memories with them, I guess. Hopefully they remember. At least I could build them stuff. So that was their costumes. They loved it. I'm not sure what everybody else thought, but who cares? They loved it, which is the point. And then I told Liam, I was like, well, it's not perfect. If anybody asks you what's going on when they get up close to it, just tell them it's battle scars. And he's like, oh, okay, which he thought it was the coolest thing ever. He did find a costume that was probably better than mine. It was like a full costume, mask, and everything. But it was like $400. It was I guess it was cosplay, not Halloween. It's like $400. I'm like, man, I can't buy a $400 costume you're gonna wear twice. But I'll try to make it. So we tried to make it. I think it turned out pretty good. I mean, it could have been better. We did have some issues, like Ollie busted a hole in the mask, and I wasn't ready. I didn't fix some divots. Liam's mask is Ollie's mask is made out of like EP foam, I guess, like the thin sheets of foam that you buy in the craft section. You might like cut a star out of them or something for like scrapbooking. Like it's really, really, yeah, I think it's called EV foam, but it's really, really thin foam. And then, so it was pretty easy to cut, glue together or whatever. Liam's mask is actually made out of 2-inch thick insulating foam board, EPS foam. Is that? I'm not sure if those initials are right. So it's actually carved out of it. And there was some miscalculations getting like the fins to fit the top of the head. So like where the fins join, where I messed up, I filled it with spray foam to fill the area and kind of get it to stick together. Because the glue I was using was kind of melting the foam at the same time, which isn't bad. I mean, it creates a really strong bond, but it also like eats craters in it. So when I went back to it, when I went back to do it all, I filled it full of spray foam, and there was still some cavities and stuff. So I went and got some wood filler this morning. It wasn't wood filler. It was like wall patch stuff that was kind of like sandy, almost dry and just sticky. And you don't have to wait for it to dry. It says you can paint it in minutes as long as it's like a water-based or acrylic paint, because it'll dry with the paint or whatever. So that's the reason I went and got it, is because it's so fast. If you're using oil-based paint, I think you have to let it dry for 24 hours. But it's not even like, it's not like drywall mud. It's like something else. It almost feels like if you mix baking soda and water together and just a little bit, that's what it feels like a putty, like out of baking soda. But anyways, I smoothed it all down and fixed all that. I think it turned out awesome. The kids were impressed, but it doesn't take much to impress them. I hope their friends are impressed. I know Liam sent him a picture, one of his friends a picture, and they're like, I can't believe all the detail y'all went into. That's crazy. That's the coolest costume, which made me feel good. But I feel like I could have done better too. I always try to start like towards the 1st of October.
I got a small dick, but wait till it get hard. She gonna be like, damn, shit, my God.
Oh, thank you very much. That was 26 packs. I appreciate it. Thank you for that. I always try to start, every year we try to start making their costumes at like the 1st of October. Thank you very much, PR, you betcha. But this year, something happened, and I didn't start until like the 9th or 10th. And then I was planning on having them done by Tuesday because hell, I fucking procrastinated or whatever. So I was planning on having them done by Tuesday, and then Mariah's like, well, we got to think Saturday, because usually we were always bitching because they don't have it on the weekend before Halloween. Instead, they actually have it on Halloween night, and sometimes they even got school the next day, which sucks. We're always complaining about that. So I was like, oh no, we complain about it every year. I know it's going to be on the fucking 31st on Tuesday. And then Mariah's like, nope, not this year. We got a thing to do on Saturday. So yeah, I hope they enjoyed it. Or I'm sure they enjoyed it. I hope they liked their costumes. The slingshot, the broomstick broke away from the foam piece that makes up the slingshot. I guess I could show you a slingshot. And it was just a bad joint. Like too much of the foam had melted away to join the threaded part of the broomstick. So it was just really brittle, and I'm sure he bumped it on something and didn't want to tell me. He said it just fell, or it just like fell off. But I'm sure he bumped it on it and didn't want to tell me. But I ended up bringing it back and just using some Gorilla Glue. Gorilla Glue, if you're ever working with foam, Gorilla Glue is like really, really good for foam, because it almost makes like spray foam. It gets so fucking, it swells up. They say on the bottle it goes to like 4 times its size. I think it goes to like 10 times its fucking original size. It's insane. You spray water on one piece, put the glue on the other piece, and then stick them together. You just make it damp. It doesn't have to be wet. And the water activates it. Man, it fucking, but anyways, it's solid now. So this is what it should have looked like, but there's no way I can make it that thin. So I just made it kind of fat. Even the ones that you can buy, like this one, are kind of fat. There's no way you make it that thin. That's for like cartoon reasons. See how thick that one is? So it's a combination of like the 3D printer. That one even come with goggles, I think. Yeah. It's a combination of like the 3D printer, a Mountain Dew bottle. That's what Liam's green lenses from his thing are made out of. A Mountain Dew bottle, and a lot of foam work, I guess. A lot of times sanding. My whole office is covered in foam. What else do we have? Let's see. Oh, if you haven't moved over to, I don't know, is Jennifer still here? I just told y'all about it. I did a TikTok video today, but I know not everybody has TikTok or not everybody follows me. But it was a quick update on my mushrooms, and I've actually got quite a few mushrooms going right now. Their grace is over. So I'll show it here, and then we'll talk about it. And even this mushroom I did today, this video I probably did at like 1 or 2. I didn't go to bed till like 7 a.m. and I got up at like 11, and then I took a shower and ate and came here. So this is probably like 1 o'clock when I was ready to leave the office. I was like, fuck it, I need to do a mushroom update. And even when I came back in tonight at whatever, like fucking 10 o'clock or whatever it was, they had doubled the amount of growth. But you'll see the growth in this video in the jars.
Mushroom update. You guys deserve an update. It's been a little bit. Let's check out what's going on. I'm actually pretty excited about it. All right, first of all, I've got them in this box with a tip I saw from an online video with a seedling mat. This mat is heated, and it controls the temperature a lot better than what I was trying to do with a heater or what have you. You also see some more jars in here. We'll talk about those in just a sec. So not everything was perfect. I did have some contamination, I believe, like it was almost like wet rot, and mostly because I didn't know how to use that seedling mat. So
our campground stays open year round, but it's at reduced capacity because the grass dies and all that stuff, and it can get muddy if there's too many people around, and you know, campers are heavy. They fucking make mud and rip grass. So it's like super reduced capacity. So there's still a lot of tent camping spots up, but as far as like where the RVs are, where the long-term people stay there, like year-round people stay there, like me and Mariah and our community, it's like every third spot. And then they might let somebody come on the weekend, but they reduce the capacity where no one's staying longer than like a few days. That way, when there isn't like, it would just be a big fucking mud pit if it was full all the fucking time. But yeah, we stay there year round. We've been there for 3 years now, almost 3 years now.
Originally, I had there's a little probe that checks the temperature and tells the mat when to come on and come off.
I guess it has been 3 years.
On the mat. That way, it would keep the mat at the right temperature. And
we moved there on Mariah's birthday because I remember making a joke about it when we ended up with the other house or whatever. She made a joke about it being her birthday. We driving the rental truck to the storage unit. Yeah, it has been 3 years now.
I was laying the bags directly on the mat. I watched a couple YouTube videos, and they said it's much better to put it in a box and not let anything touch the mat, and then put the temperature probe out in the middle of the air, reading the air temperature somewhere. When I had the bag still laying on the mat, I accidentally didn't place the temperature probe right, and the mat got to like over 100 degrees. It cooked some of the rice and the
So what I did was I have this seedling mat. And what I probably should have done is it's like the mat, and then it's got a thermocouple like temperature probe. I should have put that temperature probe on the mat to keep the mat always below 80 degrees, like 70 to 80 degrees. What I did, and I was for a long time, like I would set my bags on top of the mat, but the temperature probe would be underneath them. Well, one day when I was in a hurry or something, I set the bags down, and the temperature probe I put outside, like on top of one of the bags. So the mat was trying to get through the bag of rice and heat it up to 80 degrees. So the mat was over 100 fucking degrees. So the ones that were like right on it, I think it cooked some of the rice, and that's what caused, I don't even know if it was wet rot. It might have just been cooked rice. But I know there's no, unless you're going to send it off to a lab or some shit, wet rot just looks like too much juice in there, kind of slimy looking. And cooked rice in a bag kind of looks kind of slimy look. So I couldn't really tell, but I went ahead and threw those bags out. I just messed up with the mat. I guess it's a learning process.
90-minute rice bags. It was horrible. It turned into wet rot and mush, and it was just bad. But let's look at what we got now, because not all of them failed, and we've got some new ones. So this is one of the
even my sister that was in here earlier. You know, her kids. She's got a few kids. She's got 3 kids, and one of them's an adult, and even thinking about going back. He lived for a year overseas, thinking about going back overseas. They loved it over there. Him and his partner Seth, and then she's got her middle kid is doing well. Got a full-time job, works in maintenance. It's Nick. You guys know Nick. You guys know Nathan too. And if you watch the D&D games, him and Seth were on the D&D games. But Nick, he's got a good job. Got a girlfriend he's been with for a long time. They seem to be happy together and on their own. And then her youngest daughter, her youngest kid, which is her daughter, is already 16 and driving, and soon she'll be going to college. So my sister's sitting here looking at like housing prices and prices to rent a place and prices, how much everything's going through the roof. And she's thinking about taking like a nest egg she has and buying a camper. And then when she's got an empty nest, staying in it full time. Maybe even at our community, like with us.
The one's 8, 10.
I told her we need to buy a piece of property, buy the camper. We'll go in together and buy a piece of property, and that's where we'll build our family compound over the next 2 years.
1700, and as you can see, we got some growth there. It is looking a little wet. I'm still keeping.
It's hard to see this growth. Let me see if I can back up. Basically, what you're looking at is because the bag has glare on it. But in between these rice kernels right here, especially, you can see it good right there. That triangle of white, that's not rice. That's the mycelium holding the rice together. This over here is just like mushed rice, right? But there's like white, and it's dry. It's not wet. The bag's wet, but it's dry. White holding that rice in a clump. So that's mycelium. That's what it does. It forms like a network in between. That's why you want something that's kind of grainy, like rice or birdseed or popcorn is what I'm using now. You want something kind of grainy because it goes out in between all the things and like grabs onto it and builds this mycelium network. And like when a couple of different myceliums meet, if they're the same species, they'll meet up and kind of communicate with each other. Figure out the one of them is going to be the dominant because it's the bigger, stronger, and they'll connect together, and the other one will be like almost a slave to it. All those little organisms come together. And what I used when I inoculated these was something called liquid culture. And what liquid culture is little pieces of this mycelium kind of chopped up in a blender, and they're in a nutrient-rich solution. So like a solution with some honey in it or something that they'd feed on. And they basically are just sitting there. They repopulate. You just need one piece to start with, and it'll keep growing and growing and growing into a cloud. And once it's in a cloud, you can just inject it in the rice, and it'll figure out and take over. All right, guys. I don't think Jennifer's over on YouTube anymore. That's the only reason I kept it going so long. But I'm cutting off all the other streams. Come join us on kick.com /Cold Confessional, kick.com/Cold Confessional. We're just going to hang out for an hour or so, more probably. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. That's fine. But I'm gonna turn the rest of these streams loose. That way I can build my numbers on Kick. So I appreciate it. But I'll see everybody back. If you're one of the people who watch on just Twitch or just YouTube or just Facebook, I'll see you on Monday. We'll be back on all platforms on Monday. All right, see you, Kick. Why is it or Twitch? I don't know why I said Kick. Why is it saying that it's offline? That doesn't even make sense. Anyways. It's saying that my Twitch stream is offline, but it's not, obviously. Okay, that was Twitch. See you, Rumble. And goodbye, Facebook. That means that YouTube, thank you for joining us over on YouTube. I'm going to make it private now, but I'll repost the replay. I didn't repost the replay from last night over on Kick. If you want to see it, you can still go to Kick. I didn't take it down either. I just didn't repost it, and it was mostly just because, I don't know, I was aggravated. I was aggravated watching Phil rake in more fucking money and struggling fucking to pay the goddamn bills. Like, I was pissed off, so I didn't repost it on YouTube. That's just more fuel for the fucking, the Aussies and the Buddhists and everybody else to fucking use or whatever. Now they have to go find it on Kick, so I at least get the view for it. All right, see you, YouTube. You can watch last night's replay on Kick, and this replay from tonight will be on YouTube. I don't foresee having a meltdown this time. See you guys. There you go. All right, so like you're looking at the mycelium between the rice. That's what it does. It gets in there. It gets in between. That's why the guy, that video we were watching, the video we were watching was he was saying the reason he uses bird seed is because it's like the smallest seed and you have more inoculation points. So basically, you have more gaps. You have bigger gaps and bigger seeds, right? Between like how two seeds fit together, you're gonna have bigger air gaps. You have more gaps, even though they're smaller on smaller seeds. Plus, everywhere it touches a seed is another chance for the mycelium to start.
See, we got some growth there. It is looking a little wet. I'm still keeping an eye on this.
Yeah, hyphea. I don't know how you say it. I only read it, but it's like each individual branch of mycelium.
There's 2 more that's been inoculated for like 5 days. Those 2 black ones with something called
They're not
hillbilly.
doing
That's
much.
supposed to be a
So that's hillbilly. The 2 black ones are something called hillbilly. It's supposed to go like really fast. They're not doing much in that black bag, at least that I can see. Which all I can see is the bottom. They might be doing awesome on top. I can't tell. I could kind of feel like it's hard because it gets like a brick when the mycelium takes it all over. I can finally kind of feel a hard spot, but whatever. I'm not messing with them too much. But the jars that I put the same exact shit in, I put the same shit in the jars. It's going pretty fucking wild. So hopefully the rice is too.
really fast to get to like after you inoculate, it's supposed to grow really fast to colonization, but I haven't seen much in the bag yet. And then we've got this is another one of the
yeah, that's what I keep telling people. Like, I want to show you guys the process because I think it's really cool. I think it's amazing how fucking fast it is, how quickly shit colonizes. Once it's fully colonized and you get ready for mushrooms, like you open it up to fresh air exchange, how quickly a mushroom can grow from just like a dot to a full-size mushroom is like a week, which you guys probably see that when, you know, it seems like it rains and then mushrooms that weren't even there just fucking pop up. But me handling it every day is probably a detriment to it. I'm sure it's slowing down the growth because each time I handle it, I'm probably breaking stuff loose, putting tiny little bruises on it, wounding it, blah, blah, blah. But I can't not look. Plus, I want to document it for you guys.
Original ape, the albino PMV, and then we do have some growth right there. If I get the water drop.
Oh, I went too fast. Let's see if I bring it back up.
Better. We do have.
All right, see the white that's growing in between all this rice? That's a really good look at it right there. That sliver of white right there that I'm circling with the cursor is not rice. It's actually connecting a chunk of mycelium in this rice and a chunk of mycelium in this rice. That is good mycelium. Hopefully. Hopefully it's not some type of hopefully it's not some type of fucking mold or some shit I'm culturing, but it looks like good mycelium.
Have some mycelium growth there, and you can see it kind of bunching that rock together and holding it together, and it doesn't seem like any rot, although there's just a lot of condensation and water droplets in these bags, which hopefully that mixed back in.
Which is another thing I like more. Condensation's not bad. High fee. It's condensation's not bad. It is it has to stay really moist in there. It has to be like high humidity. When you're growing mycelium, generally they say like no oxygen. It's just putting out, it's anaerobic, right? It's just putting out CO2 and it needs very little to no oxygen. When you go mushrooms, like the actual part you're used to seeing mushrooms, you open them up to oxygen, but all the time it has to be super humid. That's why you get it after a rain and in the summer and on humid days for most mushrooms.
Hyphy.
Say to leave the bags on their side like this. Some people say to stand them up. I'm not sure what's best. Maybe you guys can tell me.
I've been laying them over. I've been standing them up. I'm not sure what's best. I know they fit better in my box when I stand them up.
And then one more last hillbilly bag. Like I said, not a whole lot going on in there. There's some mush rice. I mean, there is some mycelium going in there if you really, really look for it. But I've been kind of trying to leave these alone. I think I'm touching them, fucking with them too much, maybe. Now on to the big bags. This was one of my original ape bags.
So this bag here, you're going to see a lot of mycelium in it. But what I decided to do today is because most of the growth was on the very top and a lot of mycelium, it didn't seem like I mixed it really well. Basically what I did is I grew it in a rice bag, an Uncle Ben's rice, no, actually one of these off-brand rice bags, the white ones. I grew it in a rice bag. I felt like it was fully colonized. I opened it up. It wasn't. There was some rice that wasn't colonized. They didn't have any mycelium on it. So I threw the uncolonized rice in the trash, and I took it and broke it up and put it in this bag, which is substrate, which should be the next step. But I felt like I didn't break it up great. I was in a hurry and I was really nervous and blah, blah, blah. So today what I did is threw the bag after this video, because you're going to see a ton of white on top and some on the bottom. So after this video this evening, when I came back in, there was even more white on top. I broke it all up again and mixed it all up again. So right now it doesn't look like there's hardly any mycelium in it because most of it's in the dirt, but it should come back even stronger now. Just like when you break up the rice bags, I broke up the dirt stuff today. So it should come back even stronger, and it should be quicker because there's more of it spread out, and hopefully it connects all back together. I broke it all up. I'm doing an experiment. Most people say that, okay, the grain spawn, when it's on rice or popcorn or whatever, I just told you that doesn't require oxygen. And because you use a microfilter tape, because it's so susceptible to some type of mold or fungus or something, right? Now, then when you go to bulk, which means you're putting in a bag or a tub or whatever, you're putting it into substrate, into dirt. You're taking it out of the grain and you're giving it the dirt and stuff that it needs to grow mushrooms later on. A lot of people say because you're just growing mycelium at first, you still leave that without any oxygen getting to it. But more recently, in probably the last 2 or 3 years, major mushroom producers like mushroom labs have said that that's outdated advice. Like, basically, you have grain conditions, and then you would carry those conditions over to spawn to bulk. You would do the same conditions, then you have fruiting conditions. But a lot of labs are now saying that middle part's unnecessary. So you go grain conditions, which is like taped up, protected, no air getting in there, or very little air getting in there. Most of the air's coming out. Then once you go to bulk, you can just go ahead and open it up. It's like you're fruiting it, give it oxygen. So this one that is growing like crazy in this bag actually has a cut right underneath that filter because I've been doing a fresh air exchange on it. The other one to the left doesn't have nearly as much, and it's actually sealed up, which was the standard procedure up until like the last couple of years when people started questioning it. And some people to this day will still say, no, you fucked up. You don't open it up to oxygen until you got it fully colonized and the whole substrate, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's still people that argue on the internet about it and get really mad. They take it like fucking personal. But I'm trying both. So this one's got a cut in, a 2 to 3 inch cut across the front to get some oxygen in, and it's growing like crazy. This one's still sealed. And it's growing slowly.
That I actually went straight. It wasn't fully colonized, but I went to
all that mycelium.
Bag. And if I can get some condensation off the bag, you can see tons of mycelium growing in there.
So I broke all that up and mixed it up again today.
There, all that white stuff, mycelium.
There were some spots that were like as big as baseballs in that. That dirt is probably like this wide. Well, you can see it this wide and about that deep. There were some spots, well, at least one, that was like as big as a fucking baseball in there. I broke it all up because I want it to be I don't want like a spot here and a spot there and a spot here and a spot there. I won't get as many mushrooms. Plus, anywhere where there's not the mycelium is susceptible to mold or something taken off there. Obviously, I don't want mold in there to ruin it. So what I did was I broke it up as much as I could, spread it out as much as I could. And each little spot that I broke up, I went from like this baseball size thing was trying to grow out, you know, the circumference of a baseball. But now that I broke it up into tiny little fucking pieces, they're all growing like that all the way around them. So hopefully it takes off in the next couple of days, and I didn't fuck up.
I'm taking over. It's growing through. There's some right here growing down in there. It's even growing through the bottom of the block, and we got some more right there.
If the mycelium fully colonized, it depends on how big your jar was, I guess. But if it fully colonized within a week, that's actually really good mycelium. Like mine's coming up. I did it on the 23rd. Today is the 28th. That's 5 days, and it's probably covered about. The bottom of the jar is with my best one. The bottom of the jar is covered and probably about this high up off the jars. So maybe a fifth of the jar, and it's almost a week. You know what I mean? It's 5 days, but it's really taken off now. I wish I've been looking at other ways. Some people use like they'll take a tub. Let's say you get like a 40 quart or whatever tub, like that you would use for storage. They get 2 of them, and they fill one of them up with water and an aquarium. Apparently, aquarium heaters and water are really consistent ways to heat something. It's a lot more consistent than trying to heat the air because fluid's thicker. You know, it takes longer to change. It, you know, it kind of insulates itself because it's so thick. And then they'll put the other tub inside of that one to where the water surrounds it, and that's how they'll heat it. The ceiling mat is pretty inconsistent heat. Like, I watch it all the time bounce from like 70 to like 81 to like 68 to like 75. Like, it just bounces around all over the place. They're saying that aquarium heaters, a good aquarium heater, like a 300-watt aquarium heater, the two double totes, one's wet and it's on the outside, then the dry one goes on the inside, is more consistent temperatures. And when you have more consistent temperatures, when you keep it almost the same temperature all the time, mycelium grows faster. Because right now I'm bouncing around. I don't have heat in the office. So if it ever gets really cold, I have to have something to heat it. I can't just trust room temperature. Some people are also saying that that's outdated information. I've seen that too, that people used to try to keep it at 80 degrees specifically. And they're like, oh, that's the best. You need to keep it from 75 to 80, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of people are finding like it doesn't slow it very much if you just keep it at room temperature. Let's say you keep your house at 68 year round or 70 or whatever, that it doesn't actually slow the growth that much. Maybe it might add on like a day in your grain spawn or something. But I'm trying to keep mine up there because I don't have heat at all, so it's doing its thing.
Some more there. So this all-in-one grow bag is doing really good. Now, it's technically in fruiting conditions, not in bulk to spawn conditions. So there's like an air hole cut right here, and I've been doing fresh air exchange.
That's awesome, Trey.
There's an argument online whether when you go from grain to bulk,
this is the same thing I just explained to you guys.
When you take it like out of the rust, other people are saying that's out.
From what I can tell, there's two major classifications of like mushrooms. There's wood lovers that grow on trees and stumps and basically rotting wood. And there's basically poo lovers is what they call it. But it's like mushrooms that would grow in like a cow patty or whatever, right? They grow in cow shit. All the psychedelics, I don't think there's any wood loving psychedelics. They're all like fucking shit mushrooms. So even though these bags don't have actual shit in them, they've got the nutrient profile of like cow shit. So a lot of times they use this cocoa core and vermiculite and different things. Like these were pre-mixed. I bought these pre-mixed and supposedly sterile, hopefully. But they're supposed to simulate the nutrient profile of like a cow patty and the dirt underneath it.
Dated information. So I've got this other bag that is sealed up. It's also growing mycelium.
Where'd you send it to? Because I haven't even checked my messages.
Here's a big piece. I mean, it's also growing. It doesn't seem to be growing as fast. There's a piece. It doesn't seem to be growing as fast.
So this one without the oxygen, which is the traditional advice that a lot of people still hold on to, doesn't seem to be growing as fast. Oh, coldbeerconfess at Gmail? Okay.
But there's some on the edge.
Check it out.
But it is in there, and it does not have any type of cut. It's the filter patch, so it release air, but it's not getting any fresh air exchange, FAE, but it is growing some mycelium.
That's a good costume. You look like the butthole cop. Are you supposed to? Oh, I see it. I dressed up as an undercover cop, chest hair and all. You look just like the cop from the Butthole movie. Hold on, let me grab this and tell me he doesn't look just like the fucking Butthole cop. That's right. Yeah, you did send me a message. I had this really cool therapist at the VA. She left, and I really haven't done a good therapy and steady therapy since she left. She was a student teacher. So she was like, she was there for like 2 years with me. And then she went on to study like a different field or some shit. But anyways, she even said something about psychedelics. Then I started reading all kinds of articles. Then people were saying it in my fucking chat and stuff. And I did them when I was young, like partying. But most of the time I was so high on other things, I couldn't even tell what the fuck the mushrooms were. You know what I'm saying? Like it was all just combined with alcohol and fucking oxys and some goddamn footballs and whatever else I had, buzz bars, whatever I could get my shit off, whatever I could get the shit and do. It was all combined, so I couldn't even tell what the mushrooms were doing. You know what I mean? But anyways, here is the butthole cop picture. Oh shit, it's going everywhere. Tell me that's not the butthole cop. That's him. That's the butthole cop. If you'd have just been wearing like a plain shirt and shoulder holsters, you'd have been the butthole cop. You weren't in that movie, were you? It says I dressed up as an undercover cop, chest hair and all. Good look. I like that. Nobody's suspecting that guy's a narc. And he also buys cocaine from your uncle.
See some through there in the background.
Good costume.
I wish I could do better, but I'm so worried about contamination about showing you. Okay, the next thing, the new stuff. I got another.
Let me tell you, like, I would much rather do mushrooms and kind of venture on my own and see if it helps me, like self-medicating, than what they want. Let me tell you how terrifying the therapy that the next therapist I got wanted to put me through. They wanted to put me in an immersion chamber. They basically wanted to strap me to a fucking chair so I don't do loud noises, gunshots that I'm not expected, fireworks, flashes of light, anything that would simulate my fucking Humvee exploding again, right? I don't do that. Or combat, I don't do that. Like, it makes me freak out. They basically wanted to put me in a room by myself in the dark, strap me to a chair, and just play explosions and gunshot noises and flashing lights until I've just fucking broke me. And I'm like, no goddamn way. You want me, you guys, I think you guys are trying to get me to go postal. You got something against my wife? you want me to end her? Well, you got a grudge against? Did you go to school with her or something? There's no goddamn way. So I'll eat a fistful of mushrooms and figure it out on my own.
Or the same.
They're like, oh, it works for some people. And I'm like, what about the people it doesn't work for? What the fuck did they do? They're no longer with us. She didn't say that. He didn't say that, but that would have been funny.
Or the same syringe, the hillbilly. I wanted to try. I didn't like the rice. It seems to be too wet. And
I do really like this popcorn. As long as I have the Instapot, and I think I'm really careful following the recommendation for soaking it, boiling it, and I need to get a pressure cooker. It'd be quicker. But the Instapot sterilization method, I like this popcorn a lot better. It doesn't seem as wet. It can't turn into mush because I didn't cook it that much, right? I only cooked it to where you cook it to where you can't pinch through it, but you can bite into it. And then the inside parts, the seed's like segmented, almost like an orange. Like it's got like different parts all the way around the popcorn. That's why the kernels open up like that when you pop it. Those inside parts you can squish with your finger, but the outside you have to use your teeth. And it seems to be holding moisture. There's not a lot of moisture in the jar. You'll see in a second. But you can't mush it. I don't like that the rice mushes down and like turns into like slime. I don't like that at all.
It's hard to control, so I just went to inoculating or sterilizing and then inoculating my own grain. So I decided to do popcorn. I did popcorn. I did it all on 1023.
Hey, Virgie, I emailed you back today. It doesn't matter, but just so you know, I emailed you back.
And today is what, the 27th, the 28th. So I did it all on 1020, even in a 1023.
This is 5 days.
So here's one jar.
I got it in a bad spot, but everywhere you look, see that mycelium? See all this white fluffy shit? In the rice, it seems like it's more condensed and packed. It almost looks like if you took like white bread and like mushed it in your hand. Like it almost looks like that. In here, it's super fluffy. It's probably hard to tell from the camera, but it's super fluffy. Now this one has basically doubled since I showed it on. All of them have basically doubled. Now there's a ring all the way around the bottom instead of just in two spots. And the whole bottom, if you look through the bottom of the jar, is completely white.
There's some growth already starting, and then up the side of the jar.
The black stuff you're seeing is just, some people said that you could put coffee in, like a tablespoon of coffee grounds in there, and you can use used coffee grounds. They don't have to be new. And I thought, well, I'm already fucking going this far. I found a K cup of like some coffee, so I just threw it in with the mix. So we'll see if that helps or not. And the next one I'm gonna do without coffee and see if it does, if it changes it any.
There's quite a bit down around the bottom. These jars seem to be doing really well. So there's one. See if we can find some growth in that one. Right as soon as I picked it up, there's one. Looks like really good mycelium. Hopefully no contamination, but I won't know for a little bit. I'm hoping to figure this out before I waste a ton of money and a ton of time just getting contaminated. And I am trying to do a good job of being sterile. This one has some in it too, but I gotta find, oh, right there. There you go. That one's got some growth in it.
So anywhere you see white there, that's what that is.
Just 1 tablespoon of coffee grounds for the whole bag of popcorn, but
it's 32 ounces. It was 32 ounces of popcorn, and I split it between 4 pint jars. Right. Quarts are the big jars, right, and then pints are the it's 4 pint jars. I didn't buy the big ones. But they're not half pints. Half pints are like the jam jars with the straight sides, and then quarter pints are the little. They're only like this tall. They are pint jars, 16 ounces, and I was only supposed to fill them up 3/4 of the way, but they're probably more like 7/8, which might be an issue when I need to shake it. You're not supposed to let whatever. So on the top of these, I got a hole punched in them so they don't build pressure when I sterilize them, and when I sterilize them, and while they're doing this, they produce CO2. I don't want them to, produce pressure and explode. I've seen people, they forget about jars. Their mycelium grows up so much it covers their vent or whatever, and then they'll come into a shattered fucking jar, and it'll just be like shooting out the side because they like left it for like 6 months and forgot about it. But anyways, what you're not supposed to do is where I've got that hole punched, I've got micropore tape on it, which is just paper medical tape. Micropore is a copywritten, trademarked name, but all paper tape is the same. It has little bitty pores in it to let air go in and out. Not as easily as open air, obviously, but it does let air go out. So you're not supposed to let the stuff that you have in the jar touch that tape because there could be a contaminant that landed on that tape. And then if the popcorn, when I shake it, if it touches the tape, it could transfer that contaminant and then contaminate the whole thing. So when I go to shake them, I might have an issue because they're kind of over full. I wish I'd only done half full and maybe done 6 of them instead of 4. But it was my first time. I wasn't thinking.
White fluffy behind it. And then one more, and it has some growth as well. Right there's a little puff ball right at the edge. There's a little bit on the bottom of that kernel right there at the center of the screen now. So it is growing. This is probably the slowest one, but it is growing and it doesn't show any signs of contamination. I'm keeping it between 75 and 80 degrees in this box, keeping it covered up, trying not to touch it as much.
So what I do is this seedling mat is taller than my box. I wish I had a little bit taller box. So I've actually got it taped to that flap. But when I close that flap, I don't want it, only the top's taped because the rest of it has to kind of move when the flap opens. I don't want it to fall right up against my jars. I just wanted to heat the air around the jars. So what I do is close these. If you see this wire running right here, that's now, because I don't have them setting directly on it, that's now the temperature probe, and it ends up being right in the middle. So what I do is I close these side flaps first. That puts the temperature probe right here in the middle, and the side flaps close. And then I close this flap, and then when I close the heating pad flap, the side flaps keep it off the jars and shit. So it's kind of like a ghetto solution, but I'll make it better next time. But it's kind of like a ghetto glorious solution. But it is working, and it doesn't touch the jars directly.
But now that I've got stuff at different stages, I'm hoping to put out more content. So
I just typed in seedling mat on Amazon and got one for it was like $15, $14 or something. It was super cheap. Some of them just have like a high low on off, but this one actually I went ahead and paid a little bit more, a couple dollars more for the one that you like put a temperature in. It's got an up arrow, a down arrow, and it's got a set arrow that changes from Celsius to Fahrenheit. That's all it does, and you leave it plugged in.
So if you want to follow along with the mushrooms and what I'm trying to figure out here, like I'm not a professional. I've never done this. There's better channels for that. I'm just trying to figure it out and figure out, can you do it too? Should you just start without really knowing much? I'm trying to stay sterile. I don't have a pressure cooker. I've been using Instapot.
I should have said doing research online. It's not like it's not like I kind of just dove into this, but once by like buying a spore syringe. But once I got the spore syringe, I threw it in the fridge, and I probably did like, I don't know, 10, 12 hours of research. So I did research quite a bit offline about how other people are doing it. At first, I was trying to find the easiest way to do it. That's how I ended up at Uncle Ben's. But it seems like I said, the Uncle Ben's recipe, it seems like they've added extra water to it or something, which is not great. The water in there makes it stay wet. It starts to break down, and then fungus starts to seek it out, contamination, wet rot, whatever. Plus the stuff you shoot in, if you're going to shoot it in with a syringe, it's already going to be wet. If you're doing like a mycelium grain to grain transfer, it's not going to be wet. You're just dropping a piece of dry in there. But if you're shooting it out of a liquid syringe, it's going to add more moisture. But now I've done some more research. Instead of easiest, now I'm looking at something within that I can control the parameters better, right? The popcorn's probably better. I can see all the way around the jar. I can make sure it's sterilized myself. I don't have to worry about extra moisture. It seems to do really good on that. I didn't put any extra moisture in there. There's no extra moisture. It's not wet at the bottom of the jar like it is at the bottom of the rice bag. I kind of like the popcorn. I like the jars. Maybe popcorn's not the best. Maybe I find something better, that rye berry or stuff we were looking at, or even brown rice. You can do your own brown rice. You don't have to have the 90-second rice. Maybe there's a better thing to go in the jars, but I like the jars better, and I like that I have control of how much moisture's in there, what nutrients and shit are in there, all that shit. I like that.
Steam, lots of alcohol, trying to stay sterile. I got a still air box that is just a tote container. But if you want more updates on it, I got stuff at different
That's something you have to look up.
Now,
I'm not addressing that.
Stagger that out and make more content a week rather than one video every 10 days.
Oh, you guys want to see something cool? And just a second,
trying a little bit of an experiment, see how it works. I think I
kind of rambled at the end. I didn't like
jars
it.
Better so far. I've got more popcorn, more jars, more grain bags, and
I do have another bag of popcorn, so I should be able to fix once these jars are fully colonized. I'm going to use one of them, put the other ones in the fridge. They should be good for months, and then I'll probably fully colonize a couple more jars of a different I have a different strain that I'm supposed to be getting soon. And then once I got good, healthy, fully colonized jars, even though I won't have mushrooms by then, they'll be less prone to get like bacteria or fungus or mold or wet rot, because mycelium, when you break it up into little pieces, it's weak. It doesn't have a whole lot of energy. It's not taking up a whole lot of space. It's not got a whole lot of nutrients that it can use to. But when it grows into like a brick, and the whole brick is combined, it's already taken over all the space, and it's a lot harder for mold or something to start there, right? There's no clean spot for mold to start. 2, it's a hell of a lot stronger. It can defend itself, even if a couple of mold spores do land on it. So the most crucial times are when you first inoculate and it's trying to build mycelium for the first time, or when you break all the mycelium up to spread it out. The reason that, I guess people are probably wondering this, the reason you break it up, you start in grain spawn because that's the quickest, healthiest way to grow mycelium. Okay, but in popcorn, there's not good enough nutrients to grow a lot of mushrooms. Like if I just left it in that jar forever and opened the jar lid, I might get a couple mushrooms off of it, but it's not the nutrients it needs to produce a bunch of mushrooms. But I don't want to. There's a chance that this could all fail. So I want small batches. I don't want 100 pounds of dirt that I'm trying to start all at once. And if that 100 pounds gets mold, I have to throw out all that fucking dirt, right, in a big-ass tote. So we do them in jars because when you first start it, it's really dangerous. You might get mold, you might get contamination, whatever, in the jar. And if it's bad, you just lost a jar full of popcorn, right? Throw it away. Who cares? You got another one? Got another one? That's why people do multiple ones. That's why I'm doing 4 at a time. I should have done 6 at a time. But the reason you break it up is because that jar doesn't have the nutrients, 1, and 2, it's really small. But I can take that mycelium because mushrooms are so crazy the way they grow. I can't take a corn stalk and cut it into 1,000,000 pieces, throw it on the ground, and then have 1,000,000 corn stalks, right? That's not how it works. But mycelium, I can take that, break it up, mix it into nutrient-rich soil for mushrooms, and that'll basically have millions of pieces that all grow together and fill out this whole thing, so I get a bunch of mushrooms. instead of the jar just giving me, I don't know, 1, 2, maybe 10 mushrooms, this whole tote that I mixed it into, it'll take a little bit longer to fill it all up. But once all the mycelium gets through that, I might have hundreds of mushrooms. So all you're doing is kind of getting it strong, getting it dense, getting a lot of it together in a small package. Then you could move it to a bigger package and a bigger package if you wanted to, a bigger package, bigger package, bigger package. And it just keeps expanding. But the reason we don't start at the biggest package, the biggest tote with like a syringe, is because if something goes wrong, you have to throw it all out. Does that make sense? It's kind of weird because nothing really reproduces like mushrooms, but it would be like, let's say I wanted to repopulate an animal to an area. Okay, and I didn't know if this animal would survive, but I think they probably would do good in Tennessee. Say we got giraffes. I'm like, I don't know if giraffes can survive in Tennessee. Maybe. I don't know. They might die. I'm not sure. It would probably be better to get like a mating pair of giraffes and try them in like a small zoo than it would to buy 2 million giraffes and just spread them out and say, I don't know if you make it or they won't. Because if you lose everything, there's a big difference, right? If I lose that jar, who gives a fuck? If I spend that jar in a week, you know, if in a week it's moldy, no mycelium, or it's full of mycelium, it's just a jar full of popcorn. It's cheap. It doesn't matter. If I mix up a batch, you know, the size of a folding table, 6 inches deep, and spend fucking hundreds of dollars getting this batch of like substrate and cocoa core and vermiculite, and then I lose that, that's a much bigger deal. Plus, it might take me a lot longer, instead of just a week to know if it failed or not. It might take me months to know if it failed or not. So that's the reason.
And some more liquid culture. So if you want to stick with this to see where it goes, hit the follow button. And
everything's from 70 to 80 degrees. When you're doing mycelium, the root system, when you're doing the right root system, they say 75 to 80. When you go to fruiting, they back the temperature off and up the humidity a little bit. So they'll go 70 to 75 with misting, and not only misting, don't spray it directly on your roots. Spray it on the bag or the container and let it like run down to your roots. Or unless you have like the bottle I have, it doesn't really matter because it's like a fine mist. It's like it's aerosol, but it's not. It's hand pump. The women will know what I'm talking about for like hair supply products. It's like a spray bottle, but instead of being like a Windex bottle or whatever you're used to, it makes a really fine mist, like an atomized mist. So without it actually being aerosol, it comes out like it's aerosol, like spray paint. But if you have a different water bottle, you don't want to spray directly on your roots because it can damage or pull up on them or bruise them. But you spray it on like the inside of the bag, let it run down on there. That's good for them. That increases humidity and gives them water. Mushrooms are 90% water, 90% water. So it's going to suck all the water out of your brick, and your brick will physically shrink. Like it'll start out like this, and when you're done with your mushrooms, it'll be like this. And to get the next harvest of mushrooms, you have to let it soak in water for 24 hours, which is a whole wild thing. But that's from 75 to 80. And then for the mycelium, then when you go to fruiting bodies, it's a little bit cooler, so somewhere like 70 to 75, higher humidity. And that's about it. Oh, not only does misting and humidity help, but some people fan them because the evaporation, the mycelium can tell not only when there's tiny water droplets on them, but they can tell when the water evaporates off them. And that's apparently really good for triggering growing of mushrooms, for the mycelium to say, okay, it's time for us to grow.
I'll keep you updated as much as I can. Thanks, guys. See you. Mushroom update.
Yeah, Mariah's got one for Ollie. It's hold on. Fine mist spray, but it's weird using because it's like a pump. Yeah, it's just like this. You get them on Temu for $2. I think I paid like $8 for mine at Walmart. Yeah, this one. It's weird though because when you use a regular spray bottle, when you squeeze it, that's it coming out. And when you squeeze it all the way back and let it go, it's gone. This one is kind of delayed. It builds up pressure. So like I can pump it like 3 or 4 times and stop pumping, and it's going to spray for like another 4 or 5 seconds. Like it already built up the pressure. It still goes. So what I usually do is I've got alcohol in one of them and distilled water in the other. The alcohol one, when I'm like hosing down an alcohol to be like sterile as I can, I just like pump it a bunch real quick, and then it just sprays on its own. I don't have to pump it no more. I can do all my arms and everything. Like, it's wild. My gloves, my arms, my forearms, all that. It's weird how it doesn't like quit spraying right away. So that was my mushroom video. Since then, it's made a big change. I would say it's growing so fast right now that I'll probably see a change by the time I get off the show tonight. Which is, yeah, we use those in the salon. Yeah, Mariah really wanted one because she said it was better for something. I guess the water particles are just so much smaller. What do they call them? Misting bottle, continuous spray, nano fine mist sprayer. Let's see if somebody. I bet you someone did one. Hold on. I don't know why I'm trying to explain it when the whole wide world web is at my fingertips. Regular spray bottle versus fine mist spray bottle. Anyways, with a regular spray bottle, it'll basically a Flairosol. That's what I was trying to think of. Flairosol, I guess, is a brand or something, but I've heard a lot of people say Flairosol. Anyways, where it's such a fine mist, some people say you can spray it directly on. You can spray it directly on your mycelium, but the like a regular bottle, like the one she's got in her right hand right there, they say it'll bruise the mycelium. But here's the difference. I use one for.
Hi guys,
I bet you it would be good for watercolor painting.
It's Raquel. Today's comparison video is going to be one on water bottles.
So this is what everybody thinks about when I say spray bottle, right? That's the traditional cleaners come in it. You know, you buy spray bottles. Everybody thinks of this one. Now this one's more expensive, but it produces a much finer, much more uniform mist. You don't get this one. If you spray it, sometimes it look like on the outside of the spray pattern there'll be gigantic globs. On the inside of the spray pattern, it's just barely shooting out shit. It's not uniform at all, and it's very big droplets of water. But I mean, they're classic. They work good and they're cheap. Been around forever.
I'm going to be talking about the differences in water bottle.
I just want to see her spray them.
So as you can see, this one does kind of squirt and
she does have it dialed back. So one good thing about these spray bottles is like you can loosen the nozzle and it'll go to a stream. You can tighten it. She has it dialed back. It's actually hers is actually spraying pretty good. It's probably a little bit higher quality one.
But it does spray out a lot of water. If you want to drench your hair with a spray bottle, that's what this one's going to do. So I'll spray it again and show you. It sprays out a lot.
Okay, let me see the other one, lady.
It's a lot bigger.
This is the one I want you to see. Now that we've all seen what a regular one looks like, I'm sure you know what a regular, but here's the other one.
But you won't refill the Ferrosol bottle with water as much as you will a traditional
You don't, that's true. You don't use as much either. A lot of people overwater mushrooms because all they hear about is how the water needs to evaporate, it needs to be super humid, blah, blah, blah. They'll overwater them. And if you overwater them, you're in a solid container. You're either in a tote or a bag or like that grow kit thing I bought, the first popcorn spawn that I get that's really good is going in that box that I showed you guys. Some of y'all donated for it. I think it was like a $40 purchase. Some of y'all donated. I think we had like $15 worth of donations. That's what I used y'all's donations and my money to buy it. That's where the good popcorn's going in when we get going. But anyways, it's a solid bottom, right? It's not like a potted plant outside where you should set them up to where extra water can run out into a dish or into the ground or whatever. So when you overwater them, the water pools at the bottom of the plastic or whatever, and that creates a contamination point, right? It's just sitting down there wet all the time. Bacteria, mold, everything loves to be in a wet, damp, dark environment. It's really bad to overwater anything.
Bottle or spray bottle.
But even like your house plants and stuff, it's bad to overwater them, but usually they have a drain and they're not nearly as fragile as mushrooms are.
The one that I just showed you. So this is the way that you can use it. You can press it or mist as many times as you like.
How long can someone expect to be reset for? So, like, I don't know. They're just getting around to this therapy stuff. So there's some people making some pretty wild claims. But one of the craziest claims that I've seen repeated a lot is that a large dose, full trip that's like self-reflecting, right? Like you're thinking about the stuff going on in your life, stuff you have issues with, they're thinking about yourself, can be like a permanent reset. Like it just fixes people, which is just fucking wild. Now, I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying a lot of people claim that. Like one major fucking trip can just fix you. I kind of like the idea of doing it multiple times and kind of exploring stuff about myself and going on. But I don't actually know the answer. I'm sure that's probably not true in the vast majority of people, but that's one of the claims that's been made. But it's all so very fucking new. I'm sure ketamine's fucking like that. It's new to, well, it's not super new. I mean, they used it like in the 70s and shit, didn't they? But it's new. It's all new.
So you can mist it
as far as being legal and like not as frowned upon now. How they wanted Mariah to do lithium at one time. I think mushrooms are going to be a big boom. The same way CBD took off, maybe, and then a CBD leads to pot. So I'm thinking maybe there are legal mushroom alternatives. Somebody gave me these. They're called Trippin' Balls Mushrooms, Turkey Tail, Neon Gummy Worms, and it has muscarine, muscimol, ibotenic acid. But I don't really feel anything off of them. I mean, if I eat enough of them, I feel like a weird head change, but it's not something I like. But this is almost like already the CBD version of it, right? So I think it'd take off. And if a man was positioned right and kind of knew what they were already getting into and kind of had a decent setup, you could probably stand to make a ton of money if it ever gets legalized. Or even if it's not federal, if you can just be in a decent state that comes around, like Colorado already did it. California passed it. They're just waiting on the governor to sign it. California passed it just recently, like last month. They're just waiting on the governor to sign it or veto it or whatever he's going to fucking do. Washington State, or is it Washington State or Oregon, where all drugs are legal? Like you could be on a fucking gold rush with mushrooms, because I've been seeing people talk about super focus, super drugs, super this, super that on like legal mushrooms, like mushroom supplements. So, and they made a lot of money off that shit. So I know when psychedelics are less frowned upon, when people realize the benefits of a trip a couple times a year or whatever, and how good it can be recreationally, it's gonna go insane. Because right now, a lot of people would do it, but they just heard horror stories about like, oh, you might trip and never come back, or you'll chop your cat up and eat them. Like LSD told us, like Dare told us about LSD and just shit like that. But once word gets around, plus they're not terrified of being arrested for a plant, then I think it's going to take off like crazy. Oregon, thank you. I can never remember. I always get on everything, every time. It doesn't matter the drugs. Like any topic I talk about, Oregon or Washington, I can never remember which one's which. I even fucking sometimes, that's the one place I have trouble remembering which state's on top on the U.S. map.
So that was just one pump, something that a traditional spray bottle cannot do. Again, it mists more than spray.
I don't know why. In my mind, they're the fucking same. I don't know. In my mind, they're like interchangeable. I don't know. Did you see the mist though from this bottle? It's like a big difference. See how fine it is?
So you can mist
see how long it mists for after?
With just one press. Let's see how much actually comes out of a Ferrosol mist bottle.
It's not as much water, but see how fine it is? There's no big drops of it.
Pump, something that a traditional spray bottle cannot do. Again, it mists more than sprays. So not a lot of water will come on. So for refreshing,
I don't think anybody can drop links on Kick.
It will take a lot of sprays to drink.
You can try removing the drop comp. Okay, it's in Discord. That'll work.
So before I conclude this.
So that's the difference in the spray bottle. We didn't have to watch this whole video. But it's a lot finer mist. It's a lot more controlled. It's less water. It doesn't come out as fast or as hard. Jesus Christ.
What is it, everybody? This is Michael FileSage checking in here. I hope you guys are all doing great. And in today's video, I wanted to talk about harvesting. Harvesting is a big part of the whole growing process, right? It's where you finally get to pick your fruits of labor, and then you...
Yeah, I've heard that before. I guess what research tends to show is there's like There's a very, 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 very rare that someone just tries it and then fucking develops schizophrenia. But repeat use has a chance of making someone more schizophrenic, which some researchers say that was probably already an underlying condition, but it's hard to tell.
You dehydrate it, and then
I was talking about LSD, not mushrooms.
Store it, or you cook with it, or whatever. This is an area where, you know, a lot of people.
Oh, I forgot to show you this thing. So hashtag Team Pebbles, hashtag same team, hashtag El Jefe. Pebbles was at a, what'd she call it? Not a thrift store, but like a, what the fuck did she call it? Let me look it up. She called it something like a retro store or something, but it's something else. A vintage store. Vintage. I couldn't think of the word. A vintage store. She was walking around a vintage store, just looking around, and she was already mailing me something else. And she was walking around a vintage store, and what do you think she finds on the fucking table at a vintage store? And it had been packaged for so long in like shrink wrap plastic that the what's it called? The tannin or the tannis, like the brown stuff, the stuff from wood that gives it basically its color, like its brown color, had already leached out of it onto the packaging. Like that's how it looked. It looked rough as shit through the packaging, but I knew that was just the tannis. It's like the shit that turns like a non-moving water that has leaves in it, turns it brown. It's like a coloring in wood. She finds this. Now, I'm pretty sure it's going to be backwards to you, because if I do this, so yeah, I need to do it like, if this is right to me, that would be backwards to, that'd be from right to left. So I think I need to do this. No. Look at that. Why the hell would she find this at a vintage store near her house? Is that not awesome? It's cut out of a solid piece of wood. And you could tell where it's done with a scroll saw. But it's literally my name spelled correctly at a vintage store. Just a block of wood with my name cut out of it. Isn't that fucking wild? That's just crazy. I mean, like, I understand that there's probably people with my last name that have had blocks of wood cut before, but it was probably a very personalized thing and they bought it for themselves. Like, this was in shrink wrap, like manufacturer's packaging. Like, I don't know. There must have been some company out there that was just making names for years, and somehow they put them in the vintage section. I don't know. I'm going to get a big wooden fork and a big wooden spoon, and I'm going to start a big wooden vintage wall over there. There you go. Birds. Needs a little apostrophe. I might make one. There you go.
Have different opinions and all that.
I wanted to see what his tote looked full of mushrooms.
But anyways, everything from.
So here's two different ways to do this. So again, I told you there's a thing underneath the mushroom cap called a veil. That veil, like if here's the mushroom cap, the veil is like on the bottom of it connected to the stem. Inside this mushroom cap are the spores, okay? All this, basically seeds are up there. When these seeds fall out and hit our mycelium, our root system, the root system's smart on mushrooms. When seeds fall out and hit the mycelium says, okay, boys, we reproduce, shut her down, right? So, like, they know that they've reproduced and their job's done as mycelium, and they'll start to produce less. They'll start to die off. So, how do we prevent that? Well, if we have a cap, and then we have this veil that's holding up, that has to be separated before the spores can fall. And it turns inside out and like pushes the spores out. See how he drew this turned inside out? That's what pushes the spores out. Well, then we want to pick it right as the veil. We don't want to pick it when it's too small. We don't want to pick these little things. They're not as big. They don't look as good. You don't get as much weight. There's not as developed. So we want to pick it somewhere in between here and here, while still getting the biggest fruit that we can. So we pick it right when the veil starts to separate, or right after it separates, before the spores can fall on the ground. That's the reason you don't just try to grow monster mushrooms, keep letting it grow. Like I told you earlier, when mushrooms grow, it's not like other things. you get flushes. So you make your brick of mycelium, you grow the first flush, which is all the mushrooms you get off of it, you harvest it. You take that brick that's now very dehydrated because the mushrooms pulled all the water out of it, soak it in a bucket for 24 hours, put it back in the same exact conditions. So you don't have to start over. You put it right back into your whatever you have it in, the bag or whatever you have it in, and you have a second flush. More mushrooms will grow up out of that. Some people get like 3, 4, 5 flushes off of a brick. So you'll harvest all the mushrooms, soak it, put it back out, do it 4 more times sometimes. A lot of people just get 2 or 3, and the flushes tend to not be as many mushrooms each time, but still you've already done all the work. And then once it's depleted after 2, 3, 4 times, then you throw that whole brick out, basically.
From this point on, you don't want to harvest generally from here because it's not optimal. They could grow some more.
That's cool. That's what the same thing I've heard about putting. A lot of people put what they call a casing layer. So when they go from grain to substrate to dirt, when they go from popcorn to dirt, they'll take that cocoa core that they mixed up in their substrate. They'll take just pure cocoa core and put it on top about a 1/2 inch thick as a casing layer because it's got antimicrobial properties and shit. And it helps keep anything from forming like on the like a mold spore from falling on the surface and competing with your mycelium. But I didn't know that about pine needles.
So you'd want them to grow some more to maximize your yield. By the way, the blue here represents the veil, right? So core lovers have veils, okay? Not all species have veils, but core lovers do have veils. And a common saying is, harvest just before the veil breaks, okay? So as you can see here...
So the veil is literally like a thin piece of the mushroom that on some breeds or species, you can almost see through it. So, like, it doesn't all break at once or just separate. Like, you can see it start to tear. So, when people say harvest just before it tears, what they mean is, like, you can see it just starting to tear, just barely coming out if you happen to be there. But they grow so fast. They go from this to this in 7 days or less. So, the veil might start to tear and be fully fucking tore in a couple hours. So, you'd have to be there. So, I don't think you should freak out if you get there after the veil. But you definitely don't want the spores, especially some psychedelic mushrooms. The spores kind of stain and make a mess. I don't know if you've ever seen mushroom spores. A lot of the psychedelic mushrooms have like purple and like wild colored fucking spores. And they like stain all the other mushrooms and stuff. Nothing wrong with it. You can still eat it. It doesn't do any problems, but it looks unappetizing when like your mushroom's supposed to be white and for some reason half of it's stained fucking purple.
There's still like
or
really
black,
pens like this.
Yeah,
you don't see
whatever.
any veil. When they're starting to get a little bigger, their head starts to get a little bigger, and you're gonna be able to see. You know, it's like what you call it. You know those fluffy things that people in the past in Europe used to wear.
A frock?
I can't think of the name, but if you can, then please write it down. Okay, and then here you see.
He's talking about like the big fluffy ring they used to wear, right? That sticks out below I guess at the top of their neck.
The cap, it's growing a little bit more. And as you can see, compared to here, the cap is actually starting to open up.
This study says there's some evidence in animal studies to show that psilocybin, the psychedelic compound found in magic mushrooms, may act by stimulating a nerve cell regrowth parts of the brain responsible for emotional memory. A 2013 study from the University of South Florida found that psilocybin stimulates neurogenesis, the growth and repair of brain cells in the hippocampus, which is the brain center for emotion and memory. In the study, mice that were given psilocybin overcame fear conditioning far better than mice that were given a placebo. The study supported the hypothesis that psilocybin can break the traumatic cycle that occurs in patients with PTSD.
A bit, right? It's getting wider and wider, so the veil is stretching.
I'll speed him up a little bit.
And it's also growing upwards at the same time, so the veil, as you can see, is still stuck to this part where it was, but then it's starting to get stretched. Yeah, this isn't a very good... Okay, pretend this is another fruit, right? But a good time, this is just about the point before the veil breaks, right? Or, it might be kind of going like this, depending on your genetics, and I'm going to cover that as well.
Right, stretch
because
down
some genetics, the veil just like falls off like here or there, but the cap is still very, very closed, so it could actually grow a lot more. So that's why you shouldn't always stick with the saying of, right before the veil breaks, because different
blue and purple hues usually mean. I didn't know that. I know that one of the ones that I'm doing, is it Jedi? One of the species that I'm doing, there was a warning that the spores are fucking dark purple and they stain like crazy. They even recommended like wearing old clothes. Like if you end up harvesting and some of them are like not all the mushrooms are gonna be ready at the same time. But what a lot of people do is if they pick one, they pick them all, except for like teeny tiny ones. But that also means that if you're waiting for most of them to be mature, some of them are going to be over mature. So they basically recommended wearing like old clothes and shit because it's going to get everywhere.
Phenotypes, exist, and it's quite common for it to not break when it should. And here, this is when I like to harvest personally, just because I love the way the fruit looks and everything, and it's not sporulating yet. So this is, as you can see, the veil has broken, right? At this point, I like to do it. If you look at my, if you go to my channel,
this is my new hobby, and I don't know, I got aggravated with fucking Phil being a multi-millionaire for scamming grandmas. I damn sure didn't want to talk about that tonight. Plus, it's a kind of a short show because we were doing the trick or treating stuff and costumes and all that. So I figured we'd talk about mushrooms a little bit. It seems like some people were interested. I know not everybody's going to be, but some people were interested last time we was in it. We're holding lower than average viewers, but it's all right. This is my new hobby, and I'm going to talk about it. I meant blue. Purple is my weed color.
You see like my banner photo, that's basically around the time I like to pick it, the fruit that's in the center. I just really like the way they look. So that's when I like to personally pick, but
I saw that picture.
Generally, this is also fine right before the veil breaks. It's all good. I'd like to add, though, that I don't personally always just pick fruits that look like that because it gets a lot of micromanagement, and I personally don't really care too much nowadays.
So that's what he's saying. He don't just pick the fruits that look perfect to him or whatever. He basically picks them all, except for the real tiny ones.
As long as it's not sporulated too much, I'll pick pins and stuff just if I want to clear a flush.
Even
pins.
pins.
Can come in.
So pins are like these little ones. So a lot of people say pick them all. That way the next flush, the next crop will come in. Some people just pick the ripe ones and avoid the other ones. The problem is once you touch them, once you're going to go in there, let's say you go in there and you just cut like 4 ripe ones and there's like 50 that aren't ready yet, aren't perfect yet. You've already went in there and introduced a potential contaminant with your hands and everything in there, your breath, your body. So if you come back tomorrow and everything's covered in mold, you lost those other 50. If you pick them all and throw them in the dryer, they're good to go.
Because you could choose to harvest them like one by one as they mature, but then it just becomes a pain.
No, we did it. It was at the camp where we live at tonight. They're doing the rest of the stuff in R1. They're doing the rest of the stuff in R1 on Tuesday night on actual Halloween.
To manage all of this in the dehydrator, especially when you're going for multispore, when you have all sorts of genetic variation. So some of them will cook, some of them will be
full-size candy bars from those rich motherfuckers over there on Love Street.
So eventually, after I let a few fruits grow out, I'll just harvest the whole flush and just call it a day, so the next flush can come in and start anew. Here, as you can see, this is way too mature. It's been matured for quite a while. It's already dropped all its spores. And be careful because once you get to this point, things will start moving really, really fast.
Also, have you ever seen them? I just learned this the other day because I've been looking up like what I should expect to see and signs that I'm doing something wrong. Like I told you guys, the fuzzy feet where the mycelium grows up is trying to grow up the mushroom and it makes the bottom of it look like it's getting fuzzy or hair. That's because you don't have enough oxygen in there, and the mycelium is trying to find oxygen, even growing up stalks trying to get to the oxygen. It needs more oxygen. But another one, you ever see a mushroom that's like growing perfectly and no one's touched it, but the top of the mushroom's like split, almost like someone cut it perfectly? That's from not enough humidity. So like the humidity, the moisture in the air affects like the elasticity as it's growing, and you've seen them grow from, in a week, they grow from like a fucking dot to a full-size mushroom. So it has to be pretty elastic. And if humidity helps that, if there's not enough humidity, if it dries out too quick, not enough air humidity, like in your yard or whatever, then the caps will rip. And you can do the same thing when you're growing it. It doesn't affect it any. It'll probably make it smaller and not grow as big and not grow as strong or whatever, but you can still eat it. It didn't do anything to it.
Fast. If it's like this, like before you sleep, then when you wake up, it might be like that, so you want to pick it right as it's ready. And so this is basically, the cap will be all black, right? Because all the spores will go on the cap as well, and as you can see, the stem is also all black.
And the spores are so,
and then on the substrate,
the spores are so light, man, they float on the wind or whatever, they go everywhere.
Surface, it's always also going to be all black. And you might notice on the side of your tub, there's a bunch of, spores on there as well, so that's also all black. Well, this is completely edible. The taste won't pack as much of a punch as you would have if you harvested it when they were smaller, but it's really between this and that. So the taste, you are going to be winning if you...
I don't know if he's got any mushrooms in this. A lot of people...
All right, so let's talk about...
he doesn't. So he used a mushroom thumbnail to get people to click on it. But a lot of people only do whiteboard stuff because they are... what is this? Combining psilocybin with lion's mane, new patent, and $60 million. But a lot of people won't show the actual mushrooms because they think YouTube demonetizes them for it. Which luckily right now, TikTok hasn't said anything about my stuff. So I think I'm good. I want to see what this is. Psilocybin, combining psilocybin with lion's mane. Lion's mane is a gourmet mushroom that actually grows really fast, I think.
Welcome to the Mushroom Show, the one place that you need to be if you want to stay on top of all the amazing things happening in the world of mushrooms. In this episode, I wanted to give you a quick preview of the Mushroom Show on the road. We just got back from an epic week in Jamaica, and let me tell you, Jamaica is a special place, and the mushroom stuff that's happening down there is very, very exciting. So I can't wait to share all of that with you. We're also going to be looking at a new patent approval for a combination of lion's mane and psilocybin mushrooms, plus a new controversy that's sparked.
That's what I want to say.
On to the next story. So I saw this article in Forbes, and the title is "There's a new species of magic mushroom named after Paul Stamets." And there's a couple interesting things in this article that are worth digging into. Actually, there are three main things that I wanted to talk about.
I've seen that guy's picture. He must be like a big deal in mushroom. Paul Stamets. I don't know like the godfathers of psychedelics or nothing, but I've seen his picture before. I'm assuming that's who he's got to be.
Number one, apparently there's now a United States patent for the combination of psilocybin and lion's mane mushroom. Number two, there's a company that raised $60 million based off the premise of microdosing with lion's mane and psilocybin. And number
I hope the what is the name of the company that makes the corn grain? That's Monsanto. Ah, goddamn! I hope they don't get involved in mushrooms. They are some dirty, underhanded motherfuckers. They make pesticide resistant, herbicide resistant, everything resistant fucking seeds. They make them to where they fucking grow like crazy. They'll sprout on a fucking doorknob if you lay one there too long, like crazy. Then they sell them to the farmers. They have to buy them every fucking year. They can't reproduce with them because they're genetically modified, so they won't grow another crop. And then even if you don't buy them from them, they come out and test the fields. Let's say you're doing heirloom something, right? You've got seeds from your family passed down, heirloom, organic, blah, blah, blah. They'll come out and test your fucking field and sue you if their shit grows there. Even though they know they made it. Like if your neighbors uses the fucking Monsanto. I don't know why I can't say it now. Monsanto. If your neighbor uses it and you got heirloom shit and his shit, because it grows fucking everywhere, it's resistant to goddamn everything, gets in your field, they'll come test the genetics of your shit and sue you for having the shit in your field by accident.
Number three, there is a new species of magic mushroom named Psilocybe stametsii that was named after Paul Stamets, which is the title of this article, but it kind of pales in comparison to the other two pieces of news that were kind of casually mentioned in the article.
That looked wild. Did you guys see that new mushroom? Look at that. That almost looks like it's got jelly or something on it. I found a psychedelic mushroom the other day. The problem was something had been fucking with it and had taken bites out of it, like an animal or some shit, like while I was still in the ground. It's listed as toxic in my in this little field guide thing that my neighbor had. But I found out it's listed as toxic because technically it's toxic if you eat enough of it, but it's more got the label of toxic because it's psychedelic. But it was an amanita, a fly, a yellow fly, a gar or some shit. It's a yellow, like the Mario mushroom, the red one with the white speckles. It was a yellow one. I found it in the woods the other day.
That was named after Paul Stamets, which is the title of this article, but it kind of pales in comparison to the other two pieces of news that were kind of casually mentioned in the article. And I guess the mushroom that they're talking about was discovered.
Yeah, I'm going to save the biggest, nicest ones. I'm going to try to do a spore print. I'm also going to try to pull a tissue culture out of like whatever the biggest, strongest looking one is. I'm going to try to... The mushrooms that I have, the few different types that I have, I'm not going to buy any other variants or species right now. But I'm going to try to keep purifying the genetics and see if I can get like a crazy fast-growing strain of my own. Like it won't be a different strain. It'll just be really good genetics. And if I can keep those genetics and keep reproducing them, I could have just my own really good, not to sell or anything. It's just for me, but still. I just want some fast producers in case I ever run out.
In 2011, so it's not exactly new.
Yeah, the Mario mushrooms.
Paul Stamets.
Well, there's one in Hold on. There's one in this area. And I could have misidentified it too, because apparently there's some other ones that look like it. But there's one in this area around me that ends up being a yellow. So let me see if I can grab it. It's called the yellow amanita. It's also called the yellow fly agar. But yeah, they're yellow orange fly agaric. I'm sorry, agaric. Let me open this image in a new tab, and it looks just like the Mario mushrooms, but it's like yellowish orangish, and it's technically listed in all the books as poisonous. And it technically is if you eat enough of it, but you're not going to eat enough of it because it's psychedelic. You'd be tripping your fucking balls off before you ate enough of it. But there you go. That's it. It's a yellow one. Don't take my advice on mushrooms. I don't know anything about them, foraging for them. I can't identify them. I'm an idiot. So don't take my advice and go pick one of these up and eat it. Plus, there's a lot of them that looks like it. There's a lot of different ones that look like it or semi look like it or whatever. It's easily confused. Here's the Mario mushroom. If you want it for comparison, if you never played Mario, I guess. Oh, nope, wrong one. I want the image. There we go. There's the yellow one. It's even like, or there's the red one. It's even kind of orangish yellow at the edges. And there's the yellow one. This one just hasn't opened up all the way. It opens up to look just like that one. Like I know this one looks more round, but it's just younger than this one, basically.
This is new, which is still pretty darn cool. So let's
Amanita muscaria.
Get that out of the way first. Again, here is the mushroom. This is Psilocybe stemetsii, and the thing that I always find super cool about psilocybin mushrooms, especially the ones that are found way out in the wild, is that like they're pretty nondescript. Like you would easily walk by this thing, just a little brown mushroom without too many distinct features.
Not anymore, motherfucker.
That
suck that thing right off that
gnarly looking fairy tale Alice in Wonderland type things, but quite often they're just these boring little brown mushrooms. If we look at another picture here, you can see how small it is. Right, this is it's fully mature.
Oh shit!
It's opened up and it's probably already dropping its spores, but sitting.
Look, that's a pin cap. That you'd have to eat a fucking 1,000 of them.
Right here beside a Bic pen, and you can see
microdosing is cool. So here's what I don't know about microdosing. I've tried a microdose, and I didn't have any body effects. I didn't really have any like heavy head effects or thinking about my pulse or looking at lights or nothing like that. But I did feel, even if maybe it was placebo, but I felt like I felt a little bit better, a little bit less anxious, a little bit less worried. I felt a little bit better, right? The problem that I don't know about microdosing is when you're doing macrodosing, like big doses. If I take 3 grams today and then I want to have a 3 gram, the same experience tomorrow, I have to take like 6.8 grams. So if you're doing microdosing, if you take, let's say you take a quarter to a half a gram, and it makes you feel awesome today, right? It makes you feel less stressed and less anxious, and it's like, it's basically like being on fucking some good Zoloft or something. Do I have to how is it going to work tomorrow? Because we already know how the tolerance works. So the people that have been on like a half a gram a day for like 3 years, how are they even getting benefit from it? Because when their tolerance just keep going up and up and up and up and up, and they never increase their dose. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, I guess.
See how tiny it is. Let's see if there's another picture over here. Yeah, this little tiny, little brown, little boring mushroom. This is Psilocybe stemetsii, and I was actually kind of surprised to think about this.
Yeah, well,
already a Psilocybe stemetsii.
A lot of people, it depends on who you ask. Like the soccer moms don't, because I think they just think it's cool to say that they're microdosing. But the guy I watched the other day, I think he said every 3rd week they take off or something.
Yeah, because Paul has discovered plenty of species of psilocybin-containing mushrooms. He's even got a book, Psilocybin Mushrooms of the World, and in it is a species called Psilocybe azurescens, which is a mushroom that he named, and he actually named it after his son, Azurius, who was in turn named after Azure, or blue. Which
oh, cool. Azure. Azurescence. That's pretty cool. I'll learn it. If I can just get them to grow, I'll eat a bunch of them. I'll learn everything. I'll be over here fucking like goddamn looking like Scott Rogers, putting a penis envy and a golden teacher, split them right down the middle and stitch them back up.
which refers to the blue staining on these psilocybin-containing mushrooms. So kind of weird that it took till 2023 to get a psilocybe stemmetii. So I guess that is pretty notable, and I can see why the article is titled that. So this article was published on February 28th, which was the same day as a new patent approval for methods and compositions resolving neuropathy and improving neurological health and functioning using fungal extracts and their active ingredients.
That's what they do for when they do studies about psilocybin. They don't actually give you the mushrooms and make you eat them or the powder. They do a psilocybin extract, so it's you don't even taste it, feel it, nothing until it kicks in.
Ingredients, including species of mushrooms and mycelia containing psilocybin and psilocin, combined with erinacines and hericenones, or fungal extracts containing those active ingredients, with the addition of nicotinic acid. So basically, this is for certain combinations of psilocybin and psilocin, or the active compounds in magic mushrooms, but also hericenones and erinacines, which are compounds in lion's mane mushroom, which have been shown to promote nerve growth.
There's lion's mane, and it literally looks like lion's mane.
Factor and neurogenesis. And then
it's called the Stamets stack, stacking these two drugs together.
Also with the addition of nicotinic acid, which is also known as niacin, which is also known as vitamin B3. Now, this is for the idea of microdosing. So obviously the psilocybin makes a lot of sense, right? People microdose with psilocybin, but the lion's mane makes a lot of sense as well. And we did just do a video on this on the last episode of the Mushroom Show, talking about lion's mane and how it could be used for neurogenesis and for cognition because of the special compounds inside. Now, the niacin, why that is in there, I mean, that is a little bit less obvious. And I always thought the reason why was because niacin would
we went over how to make tea before.
Somehow help with the entourage effect or somehow help with neurogenesis. And among proponents of people who use this stack, niacin is a vasodilator. So people say that it helps to get the psilocybin into more areas of the brain and more areas of the body. But it does seem like that's only kind of part of the reason for including niacin in the stack. So if you read right from the patent, it does say that as niacin activates nerve endings, the inventor suggests that the addition of niacin contributes an added benefit by enhancing the neurogenic effects of psilocybin, psilocin, erinacines, and hericenones by helping these nootropics cross the blood-brain barrier and migrate throughout the nervous systems and to its endpoints. So again, this idea of spreading the psilocybin and the other compounds further into the body and get to more nerve endings where there can be more benefit. But it also references the fact that niacin is in there and can be used as a bit of a deterrent for people to stop.
I thought about, well, I actually tried. I tried to get, like, obviously I don't have any mushrooms ready. I tried to get a bunch of mushrooms for Halloween. I think it'd be cool to eat a couple grams and then go trick-or-treating.
From consuming too much of the formula, because niacin can cause this unpleasant flushing reaction. And I guess that kind of makes sense if you're doing a microdose product, because some of the pushback might say, well, what's stopping people from just, taking the whole bottle? And you could say, well, there's this niacin in there that could be a deterrent for that effect. So again, reading right from the patent, it says niacin has long been reported to counteract the effects of psilocybin and LSD, helping those experiencing adverse reactions of bad trips to return to a non-psychoactive state of mind. By reversing these.
So it stops a trip, a bad trip so if you put that in there, you could take higher doses for a microdose and still not feel the tripping effects, but maybe get the the anxiety suppression and shit going.
Excitement of nerve receptors. By adding niacin into a psilocybin-centered neurogenerative nootropic nutraceutical, vitamin complex, or medicine in sufficient quantities to cause extreme discomfort for those who might try to abuse a therapeutic combination containing psilocin or psilocybin, this invention provides improved methods and compositions to prevent potential abuse by those wishing to get high. Analogous to the effects of antabuse, which induces an unpleasant experience for those abusing alcohol, the addition of sufficient quantities of niacin, which likewise cause extreme discomfort with psilocybin or psilocin, will help prevent the abuse of the described neurogenic formulas. So again, this idea that the niacin could be there to make sure people just microdose and don't take the whole thing, but it seems like it could also have benefit for the neurogenesis in general. So either way, it's kind of interesting. It's actually kind of funny too that they mention antabuse, because that is also in a mushroom. It's in a different mushroom, an inky cap mushroom, and that's why some people will say,
yeah, I've read about them grinding up mushrooms, and then the only reason I remember it and it caught my eye was they used chloroform. They ground them up and put the mushrooms in chloroform to get out the psilocin and psilocybin.
Like, don't eat inky caps or shaggy manes while you're drinking because it causes this super unpleasant reaction. So there's a bunch of different versions of this formula mentioned in this patent, but this is kind of the main one, Neurogenesis Formula 1, which is 1 milligram of psilocin or psilocybin, which would definitely be considered a microdose. That would be somewhat equivalent to like 0.1 grams of mushrooms or 0.1 grams of dried mushrooms. 50 milligrams of hericenones or hericenones, which come from lion's mane mushroom, and then 200 milligrams of niacin, and then 199 milligrams an extract of lion's mane again, or Hericium coralloides, which is a different species of very similar to lion's mane. Same with this one, Hericium abiatus, and or fruit bodies of medicinal mushrooms or extracts or plants with neurogenic properties. So again, this idea of basically psilocybin, erinacines, and hericenones, niacin, and then maybe some other extracts of mushrooms or herbs. So this brings us to the third point in the article, which is this $60 million raise for a startup known as Mycomedica. Now, that does sound like a lot of money, but to be fair, there are like lots of psychedelic adjacent companies.
That does not sound like a lot of money for a medical company. someone that has to go through testing and FDA approval and shit. Hell no.
And adjacent companies that have been raising a lot of money,
60 million
research and do all sorts of other things in this new and
off by orders of magnitude
space. So this is the company here, Mycomedica, and to be fair, there's not like a ton of information on the site.
So see, people are already investing in this for medicinal purposes. I'm sure if it gets medicinal purposes, it's just going to be like pot. Some states you have to have like a prescription and a card for it. Other states, you just go buy it. You know what I mean? Like there's already big money moving into this. So I want to be set up, even if I'll never sell, never do anything of that, never start a company. I just want to be set up to do my own, like get my own rather than having to go get a prescription or go buy it for someone else. They're going to fucking hawk it and then you got to pay crazy taxes on it.
But there is a press release from back in June of 2022, and I'm definitely a little bit late on covering the story because I just wasn't paying attention. But directly from the press release, it says a new company focused on developing and delivering fungi-based therapeutic drugs to prevent and treat psychiatric and neurological disorders. Today announced that it raised $60 million, funding by blah, blah, blah. The proceeds from financing will be used to advance the company's next stage of operations on the path to FDA approval for an investigational new drug application, preclinical research, and initial clinical trials of the Stamets stack. So yeah, this is what they're calling this breakthrough innovation. This is the Stamets stack, and this seems to be kind of the cornerstone of what they're building here is based off of the Stamets stack, which again is that combination of psilocybin.
Do you guys remember like a few years ago when there were all these crazy ads saying this is like the limitless pill, this is like this will unleash your full potential, your full mind, you could concentrate on everything at work? It was like, maybe I just got them because I'm an elderly man now. But there was like all these Facebook ads and Instagram ads and shit. The doctors are saying it's the limitless pill, like from the movie Limitless. That was all like nootropics and mushroom extracts. Some of them were like mushroom body extracts. Some of them were like mushroom mycelia extracts. But that's all that was different stacks of like vitamins and nootropic shit and microgreens ground up in mushrooms. So I've been hearing about this for years. I think mushrooms are getting ready to make a lot of people very rich.
With lion's mane and niacin. Now they do also have some news on the site here about some research that was done on the stack, on this combination of psilocybin, lion's mane, and niacin for microdosing, which is kind of neat because there's not a lot of studies on microdosing. Obviously there's a lot of anecdotal reports, a lot of people are microdosing, a lot of people are finding benefits from microdosing, but these things are really kind of hard to study just because studies get complicated, these things get complicated, and there are so many different factors. But they did do a study, which we can look at right here, and it's titled "Psilocybin Microdosers Demonstrate Greater Observed Improvements in Mood and Mental Health at 1 month relative to non-microdosing controls." So it starts off by talking about a little bit of the background on this type of research, and it really seems
I keep a lot of chloroform on hand for other reasons, and by other reasons I mean anal.
to harp on the fact that a lot of microdosing studies don't have a control group or don't have a placebo group, and then they might suffer from the fact that people have expectations. So if they know that they're microdosing, they might think that they're going to have all these improvements, and because of this placebo effect, they do in fact. So a lot of the studies don't have a control group with non-microdosing.
Well, I mean, technically making tea is like an extract. So like when you make tea and you like use the fruiting bodies, it's an extract because you don't even have to eat the bodies. You can, a lot of people do and feel like they get a little bit more or whatever. It doesn't matter. But you don't even have to eat the mushrooms. It's in the tea. If you just take the bodies out and throw them in the trash and drink the tea, it's in there. Or if you put them like in one of those steeping, like a tea bag that you has drawstrings on it, yeah, you throw the whole fucking bag away. Like you don't need the bodies. So that's technically an extract, I'm sure, even though it's just from hot water.
Dosers, which this study does, which kind of makes it stand out a little bit. And it kind of reminds me of this meme or this joke that I saw recently where there's it's like a cartoon of two groups of people. This one group is just kind of sitting there, whatever, normally having a good day, and the other group is kind of like naked and dancing in a circle. And the one group says, "Oh, I guess we were in the control group." And it just kind of shows, maybe it seems a little goofy, maybe more so in macrodoses or macrodose studies, where it would be a lot more obvious if you didn't get the placebo.
Yeah, I see that. What is dual extraction? If we want to extract and contain all the non-water soluble compounds, we need to extract the raw materials with something other than water. This is where the alcohol comes in. The alcohol will extract non-water soluble compounds into our liquid.
Then in microdosing, but I think in microdosing studies, it does make a lot of sense to have.
With the leftover solids from hot water extraction, we will now add them to a mixture of alcohol. When I first started getting into this a few weeks ago or a couple months ago, I guess now, the first I got was those candy bars that one of you guys were generous enough to send me. And then after that, I found a guy that had some just powder. It wasn't an extract at all. It was just ground up, and powdered. It looked like it had been ran through a coffee grinder, to be honest with you. but it was just ground up. That shit was strong. I mean, they were golden teachers, but god damn, they were strong as hell. They like 3 grams of that shit was stronger than the 5 grams in a chocolate bar. And he even told me they were old. Like he had them for so long. Like he's like, I don't even know if they don't work, I'll send them back to you because I know they lose their potency after. He even said they were super old, and man, they were fucking strong.
Have a control group or to have a placebo group, so that you can really try to measure those.
Anytime you're working with a live plant, you can have that happen though, right? It might be, you might go to harvest mushrooms. You pick this one and this one, and this one has twice as much. Come from the same batch, same spores, same everything. This one has twice as much as the active ingredient in it.
The differences in the effects, and that's kind of what the study set out to do. So this was actually a pretty sizable study. When you look at the number of people in there, there was a total of 1,133 participants, 953 were microdosers, and 180 were non-microdosers. And basically what they did was they followed people over a month of either microdosing or non-microdosing, and then they got them to self-report a bunch of different things. So they did like stress and depression and anxiety using all of these standard scales, but they also did cognition using something called a finger tapping test to kind of measure if there was any improvement or any change in cognition. I guess this finger tapping test on an iPhone is a good way to measure changes in cognitive function. Now, the results were pretty darn...
That means it causes liver damage, right?
Interesting, if you ask me. So first of all, for things like depression, anxiety, and stress, again, they measured after 1 month between non-microdosers and microdosers. And if we look at these results here, you can see that there was a pretty significant change.
Oh, put them in the freezer after you gel cap. I've been thinking about getting gel caps, because I know that I want Mariah to try, and she's tried some of the chocolate, but she really, really hates the taste of basically any mushrooms. So I thought about getting some capsules
over the month, specifically for the people that were...
I wanted to hear this about microdosing.
So first of all, for things like depression, iPhone is a good way to measure changes in cognitive function. Now, the results were pretty darn interesting, if you ask me. So first of all, for things like depression, anxiety, and stress, again, they measured after 1 month between non-microdosers and microdosers. And if we look at these results here, you can see that there was a pretty significant change over the month, specifically for the people that were microdosing. So if you look at this blue line here, this is this depression, this measurement of the standard.
This is hard though. This is self-reported. Like, are you more depressed or less depressed since you've been? This is self-reported stuff. Is super hard to like. Mental health's already hard, but when there's no symptoms, like crazy outbursts or something like that, when you're just saying like, "Well, don't you feel better now that you took the medicine?" It's hard to trust people, I guess.
Scale for depression. The red one here is anxiety, and the green one is for stress. And you can see for each one of those measurements,
but I guess the placebo people probably would have done the same things. So basically, everybody was reporting less depression, less anxiety. No. What is this? Less stress, less depression, but the same amount of anxiety for the placebo people. So I guess the placebo people do the same thing.
The microdosers had a more...
They don't know they're the placebo people.
Significant decrease in the measurement of depression, anxiety, and stress than the non-microdosers. And I guess the most interesting one here is this anxiety measurement. The non-microdosers had no change, where the microdosers had a pretty significant decrease. But in each and every case, the microdosing cohort had a larger improvement than the non-microdosing cohort. But also interestingly, the study...
So like... the biggest thing with mushrooms is properly storing them, but even if you store them perfectly over like years, they lose some potency. I don't know how much it is, and I guess it depends on the species and the air temperature and humidity and all kinds of shit. But even if you store them perfectly, they do lose potency, but maybe you can slow that down some.
Study notes that there...
Well, but if you can freeze them, somebody said they freeze them, maybe that works and you don't lose potency.
Was no significant difference amongst the microdosers that used just psilocybin versus those that used psilocybin and lion's mane and those that used a full stack of psilocybin, lion's mane, and niacin. In other words, microdosing psilocybin had a pretty major impact on depression.
I might try. I thought about, I don't even know if I want to say that. If we start this unofficial, hypothetical mushroom retreat, you might see somebody out there that looks an awful lot like me, just sprinkling spores around areas where I've seen mushrooms before.
Anxiety and stress, but the addition of lion's mane and niacin.
Try to get some wild shit growing there. I need to find something that's good for like our environment and shit and the right time of year and blah, 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 and see if I could fucking, sprinkle some spores out. Tell the kids to stay away. feed them to the dog to test them right quick.
Did not have any additional effect. But again, they also tested this psychomotor performance and cognition, which is again kind of similar to testing reaction times using this finger tap test.
Fucking Gilligan used to be an alcoholic. I don't know if you guys know that. My dog Gilligan would take a beer out of your hand if you weren't paying attention in a glass bottle and drink it. Like that dog is wild. He can climb a chain link fence. My dad thought somebody was breaking in one time. He can open a regular fucking doorknob. He can open a doorknob. So I took him up. I was going out of town one time. I took him up to my ex-brother-in-law's house and put him in the pen and went in there to talk to him about dropping him off. Come back outside of my Jeep. The windows were down. Gilligan was in the passenger seat. I'm like, what the fuck? Put him back in there again. I went to tell my ex-brother-in-law. I was like, you won't believe this. I don't know if I didn't put him in there or what, but and I went back out again and to show the guy on the porch, and that son of a bitch was in the Jeep again. So this time we put him back in there and went in there and watched him through the side window, and he would stick paws in a chain link fence. Like he would basically, like, you know how a dog's paw kind of like bends over like the ankle joint? He would just push it up against the fence until it found a spot to go in, set it in there. Then he'd push the next one and climbed all the way up a chain link fence. Then they had the chain link fence wasn't like a normal one. It didn't have metal poles. It was kind of like redneck trailer trashy as hell. So it had like 4x4 posts. He would put all 4 paws standing like this on a 4x4 post and jump from that post straight into the Jeep that was parked beside the fence. The fuck? Then my mom and dad were house sitting one time for us while we were out of town. And there was a big thunderstorm. Gilligan does not do thunderstorms at all. I don't either. But Gilligan freaks out thunderstorms, doesn't like them. You can't be outside. He doesn't even like when it starts to rain because he's afraid there's thunder coming. Like, he hates it. He's about deaf now, but he still hates it. So a storm started rolling in. They forgot they had left Gilligan out back. So a thunderstorm comes, and my mom is cooking in our kitchen, and that's where the back door's at. And she thinks she hears somebody, like, jiggling the handle of the door. And she tells Dad, she's like, what was that? And Dad's like, I don't know. What are you talking about? And she's like, I thought I heard somebody at the back door. He's like, oh, you're crazy. So he comes and stands in the kitchen. And before you know it, the fucking handle jiggle is locked. But the handle no, it's not locked. But the handle jiggles again, just turns a little bit. And he's like, there is somebody out there. There is somebody. So Dad grabs his fucking pistol. And he said he was holding it, standing behind the table. And Mom's like backed up against the stove, like watching. And it jiggles again, and Dad says, all right, you son of a bitch, you come in here, I'm going to put a hole in your fucking chest. And about that time, the door goes and opens, and here comes Gilligan swinging on the doorknob by his mouth, opening, coming in, soaking wet. And as soon as it opens big enough, he just hits the floor and runs in and gets in the bedroom. Oh. My old dad.
And the results here were pretty interesting as well. Now, first of all, the younger cohort had better results overall. So they kind of split this into under 55 and over 55. And that kind of makes sense, right? That the younger cohort would have faster reaction times. It's just kind of
damn, all these are going up.
Thing. But the difference between the non-microdosers and the microdosers was very interesting in the over 55 group. So again, all these dotted lines here are the under 55, either non-microdosers or microdosers, and all of those seem to improve over the month. So everybody got a little bit better.
It's an improvement. Okay.
But when we look here, this is the over 55 group. So if we look at this over 55 cohort, that's all.
What's the black non-microdose? Oh, they all went up except I guess the black line is non-microdosers. Damn.
Bottom here, and you can see one of the
this is psilocybin plus lion's mane. This is just psilocybin. So yellow is over 55 and just psilocybin. Red is psilocybin and lion's mane. Same thing up here with the dotted ones, but they're younger. This is the dotted's under 55.
Cohorts had a decline in psychomotor performance over the month, and that was the 55 and older non-microdosers. So the non-microdosers actually had a slight.
Yeah, he'd come up and me and my buddy were sitting out on the back porch one time, and I had every time I would drink beer or whatever, Gilligan come around, sniff around or whatever, and I'd pour a little bit and let him drink it. But the first time I sat on the back porch with a bottle, and I don't particularly care for Bud Light, but my buddy Adam, he had brought over some Bud Light he had or something. We sat on the back porch drinking it, and I just opened one, took one drink out of it, and put it back down like in my lap, and was looking at something, a car or something coming like towards the road. And Gilligan come up with his whole head like Mariah seeing a fucking hard dick and just whoop, just lobbed onto it. and jerked it out of my hand before I was even paying attention, and just throws his dogs can't look up, right? So he like sits his butt and like turns his head side. Dogs can't look like straight up for some reason. So he like sits on his ass as soon as he grabs it and turns his head sideways and just starts chugging a beer. It was like he was shotgunning it. The air was coming through his nose. You hear it whistling and shit. It was wild. Did you guys see Matthew Perry died? That's wild, dude. In my head, Matthew Perry's still like 30 years old until I see him. You know, obviously he looks older now, but he was always my favorite on Friends. But in my head, it's like, yeah, it's like when I was like in 5th grade, Friends reruns came on CBS. Like, I don't know. Can't believe he was always my favorite. He was funny. Did they do anything else on the, I know we've been talking mushrooms. Did they do anything else on Robert Card at all? Shithead would knock over beers, drink them. You try to clean it up, he would show his teeth. I would scream, shit. That's the reason I figured out, that's the reason I figured out that, that dogs couldn't. I was like, why is he drinking beer sideways? And we started Googling shit. That's how I found out dogs can't look straight up. He knew it, obviously. The manhunt ends. I thought they were going to do a new press conference today. But they didn't, did they? Oh, here's 12 hours ago. Maybe. They said that they didn't think.
In Maine, where authorities are giving an update on the.
They did not think that foul play or drugs, alcohol were related. At least the article I saw earlier today. So I don't know. Did he just fall asleep and drowned? If it's not drug, alcohol, or foul play, you fucking fall asleep.
Mass shooting that killed 18 people, injured 13 others. Let's listen.
I know you've been with us now for a few days away from your family.
I had a buddy that had a dog that he had shotgunned, like when you hold, you hold their mouth closed and blow up their nose after you hit your bong or whatever. He had done that so much to his dog. His dog fucking loved it, dude. He would be so fucking baked. Like just getting high, just smoking weed and looking at that dog, you just be fucking dying laughing. But anyways, when you started to fire up a bong or a pop or something, that motherfucker would come over there and put his paw on the fucking lighter until you're like, okay, I'll get you some. His paw on the fucking lighter. It's crazy.
Tucked in here with Lewiston working with us. So we're going to go ahead and kind of focus again on the operational side of the house. It's intended that I'm your only speaker for this morning. I suppose if we do get some Q&A that somebody else I think can answer readily, we'll do that, and we'll do the best we can.
I was kind of wanting to see if they released any details.
In the community here. So I do want to start right at 7:45 last night.
Derek, aren't you fucking from Maine or some shit?
When Mr. Card was located deceased from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and that did occur at the Maine Recycling Corporation, and that's at 61 Capitol Ave in Lisbon. And we're going to try to put that right up here on the screen.
They didn't find drugs, but they haven't. Okay. So, yeah, maybe the autopsy will come back. Yeah, I guess it's too quick to expect an autopsy. Maybe the autopsy would come back and see that maybe he's under the influence and that didn't help any.
The audio visual is a little better than the chalkboard we had on day one. So this should show a map, a Google map location of where the Maine Recycling Corporation is located at. And I wanted to show this. This is the primary reason that we're late, because we were trying to get this switched over from Google Maps to something that you could utilize. So when you look at this, there's a triangle here that stop right there. Yeah, exactly. That triangle is, in fact, the Maine Recycling Corporation. And if we go down across Capitol Avenue to where that circle is, that's the overflow parking location where he was found deceased in a trailer. So, and I think that's important because we were asked some good questions last night that we did not have the answers to at that point. So that particular location was cleared twice previously, and it was cleared in that triangle.
Yeah, I'm not going to be here much longer.
Located, and that was cleared by Chief McGee and the Lisbon Police Department and individuals there earlier, and a joint.
Okay, so they cleared his original former workplace. I think he was fired from there, but he used to work there. They cleared it, but it's because he was in the overflow parking lot trailer where they probably didn't even know that was the same property. It's across the street. It probably wasn't labeled. They probably didn't even know that was part of the property. I bet that's why they didn't find him sooner.
Or a combination tactical team later in the afternoon. The owner of that facility did a great job because he was like, this individual knows the property. He could be tucked in the back of one of these trailers because they're full of recycled metal and all this stuff. You could crawl over the top. We cleared the trailers. We cleared trailers that are there on that business footprint. Nobody had any idea that across the street, across Capitol Avenue, there's an overflow parking lot, which is Recycling Corporation property. So the owner was very diligent to say, well, did you clear those trailers? Well, what trailers are you talking about? So then the follow-up is with the tactical team.
Okay, so the owner was even trying to help him out.
Team commanders to say, okay, tell me exactly where you were at. And then they were doing the same thing. We were looking at our timeline. We cleaned trailers. We didn't clear those. Let's go back. So the Maine State Police tactical team ultimately were.
So he may have. So I bet you he went there and did it almost immediately, right? Almost immediately he went there and did that, or pretty quick. But they missed it. But they decided to go back and look. That was good of them, though. Hell, if they went back and checked and been like, oh, fuck, that's another. I mean, they might have never found it. There's a guy here locally that Mariah knew. His family owned a restaurant, and Mariah worked at that restaurant. So did my mom and both my sisters at one time. All worked at this restaurant as waitresses, and mom worked as a cook too. But he went out and killed himself, and everybody kind of knew. There was like security cam footage of him. Like apparently he had like a note. But his family didn't want to believe it was a suicide note. They were trying to say it was just like a thought journal, and he's just writing down that he's sorry. It's just his thoughts, but it would seem like a suicide note, telling everybody he was sorry and whatever. But his family didn't want to believe that. But they had footage of him like putting that note in the safe, like security cam footage of him putting that note in the safe in his house, and then going out back by the trash cans and walking towards the woods. But they looked and looked and looked for like weeks and weeks and weeks and never found him. Then the police department. Then the family hired a private investigator because now they're thinking maybe there's a chance he's not dead. Maybe he just fucking walked out in the woods and went to Mexico or something. So the family hires a private investigator, but he finds him in 2 days, which it's hard to locate a body in the woods. I've been on like search and rescue and shit. It's not easy. It's hard, even when they're wearing like, that's why it's such a big deal to wear like blaze orange and shit, or have some type of flag or a signaling mirror or something crazy. There's just a lot of woods in some places, and it's just hard to find a fucking body.
The ones that located
or a person.
The body within one of those trailers. And this is a tractor trailer style. You picture that 18-wheeler. This is what a trailer would look like. A box trailer is where he was located, right in the back of that. Some of those
So he was in a scrap trailer. I thought they meant like those trailers they bring out, job site trailers where they make like an office in it. We worked out of town shutdowns. That's what we worked in and out of. It's like an office in one end, then it's like a couple of tables, a break room, microwave, and a bathroom. I thought that's what they meant. They mean like a tractor and trailer for scrap metal.
Those are locked. Some of those trailers aren't. So he was found inside.
They found him yesterday.
That was unlocked from the outside, and then you can probably picture.
And they did like
experience on the street, right? You've seen those kind of things.
They did a press release, but it was super quick. The guy's like, "Well, it's 10 o'clock." Blah blah blah. They just basically like, "He's dead. We found him," and left.
Before, so that's where we found the body last night. A little bit of updates in that regard. We're going to be there probably through the end of the day, making sure that we process that particular scene, and we'll also be at the bar and grill and the bowling alley probably through the rest of the weekend. We're currently working that now, and we will definitely be working that tomorrow. And at this point, that is heavily resourced by evidence response team members. So ETs are processing physical evidence at those locations. Again, as we've discussed, there's a reation for that. That's a lot of material still there to work with. So we expect that we'll work through the weekend there.
Oh, yeah, he's dead. I'm sorry. Yeah, he's dead. They found him pretty quick. Like, it was probably like 6 months after they hired the private, 6 months after everything happened, they hired a private investigator. Once the sheriff basically said, well, we haven't found him. Somebody finds him, report it, but we don't really know what to do. We can't just look in here for months and months and months. We're trying our best. But yeah, they found Luke.
I would also just tell you that the behind-the-scenes stuff is a very intensive manhunt, an incredible amount of resources invested. Once he's located last night, truth be told, we got some people some rest. Hopefully you got some sleep last night. So we sent some people home. They're back in this morning, all in for today. We're going to send them back to get some rest tomorrow. They can see their families and be back in on Monday, the entire team, to include our partners, which I am going to take more time today to make sure that I acknowledge everybody that I can. So they'll be back in on Monday to continue their work, whether it's scene cleanup.
If my mushroom content, I'm going to start making some more TikToks. I'm going to try to do, I want to do one a day, but I know that schedule will be hard to keep up with. So I'm at least going to try to do like 3 or 4 a week. If it starts taking off, it might branch off into its own thing. If you guys are interested, I'll keep you updated. Right now it's going to be on my regular channel, but it might branch off into its own thing.
Continuing to do interviews. Overall, we received 821-ish as of a little while ago, tips and leads, so we continue to work those. The digital tip.
Oh, that reminds me of something when I was in high school. When I was in high school, I was like, we had this guy named Bo Shadden. He was probably the greatest fucking teacher ever. Dude, he was just an excellent teacher. He would do anything for you. He would help you out. He would go to bat for you against like the school board or something and funding. He paid for trips out of his own fucking pocket. He made clubs up and paid for that stuff. His family owned the fairgrounds, so he had access to that and did all this stuff in FFA, that like soil judging, cattle judging, and sheep shear, just all kinds of stuff that a lot of people didn't have the funds to do it. We would raise it, or we would sell plants out of the greenhouse, or he would fund it out of his own fucking pocket. He was just an amazing teacher. Well, I took a bunch of his classes, and one of them was like nursery, greenhouse. Took those classes. Landscaping was another one, and ag science, shit like that. Anyways, I was the farm manager for the FFA for 2 years, I think. But that's where I delivered those goats and bought one for my nephew as a Christmas present to torture my sister. When cops would find seeds on someone that they thought were marijuana seeds, they can still be charged in the state of Tennessee, but they have to prove that they are able to be they're able to be grown into a marijuana plant, right? That you can actually take them, and the police would bring us fucking seeds to germinate and fucking sprouts until it's big enough to be an identifiable plant, until it had leaves on it. Isn't that wild? Then I don't know what they did with it after that. We gave them to them in seedling cups. I don't know if they would have to grow it to see if it actually has THC, because what if it was like what if it's like a hemp plant? I don't know. I don't know that part. But I do remember the police having to sprout fucking pot seeds and then turn them back over in seedling cups.
That video tip line that you were so helpful in putting the information out on. Ultimately, we're at 197.
Yeah, Bo Shadden was amazing.
And that's information that was up.
Our stupid school system fucked up and drove him away from here to a place that probably pays better and treats him better and shit. But yeah, he was an amazing teacher. I wish he was still here for my kids and future kids.
We're at 197 of those leads, and that's information that was uploaded to that system. Got about a dozen or so search warrants that are completed, so signed and impounded. Impounded meaning that you wouldn't have access to them at this point. But given the circumstances here, right, because we don't envision a trial of any sort for anybody that's involved here, the release of information I would expect after those affidavits, that impound is pulled, there's going to be a lot of information that's going to be there for you down the road. Again, we'll try to do the best we can today. Now that piece of this event is done and he's been found, we're certainly able to answer additional questions. Everything we say can be interpreted by the suspect.
You changed your name to Dr. Water Heater. I thought you were ripping cigs or whatever. That was a funny name.
They just said this about me. I'm going to go do that. And again, based on the violent nature of what occurred here, the traumatic.
He was a little guy, but that CR500, man, he'd fly on that thing.
Incidents that occurred here in Lewiston, we were certainly concerned right into the last second that we didn't know what this individual was going to do next or where he was going to do it. So we need to be very cautious about that. We also need to be very cautious when you talk about trials. One information. So Mike's at the podium and he said this. And then a trial 2 years later, they say, well, didn't you say this? And now you think this because you found it in a cell phone. All those things, we need to make sure that we're not being prejudicial for trials and for the court process. So again, from our end, about a dozen or so of those warrants, and everybody will continue to work on that. I think there's some additional information that I mentioned I was going to speak to you about today, and that is the addition of a family assistance center. And that family assistance center is going to be located at Lewiston Armory, 65 Central Ave, right here in Lewiston, so 65 Central Ave. And that's intended to be a one-stop shop kind of thing, one central space for victims and their support persons to gather so that they don't have to make multiple stops for multiple different agencies to seek assistance. Now, this particular location is open for individuals who were present at the shooting site. So whether you were victim, physically stating that you were injured during this event, or you were there and traumatized, in either one of those situations, the Family Assistance Center will be a good spot for those individuals to go. I will say that this is probably, again, common sense, but the media will not be allowed to enter the Family Assistance Center. We want these folks focused on healing, not on, am I on camera? What are people going to think? I don't want anybody to know I was there. So if you could do me a favor and help me out with that, that would be greatly appreciated. Now, that's the Maine State Police are working with the Maine Attorney General's Office, the Red Cross, the FBI Victim Services Division, who have been incredible, and they're opening that space. That space actually opened this morning at 10, and they're going to be operational for the foreseeable future from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Lewiston Armory at 65 Central Ave. A separate location, a separate site, providing mental health assistance, and that's going to be located at the Ramada Inn here in Lewiston, and that's created for the larger community. So again, as we've discussed, you have the scene, but the entire city is a scene, right?
For the rest
People
of the community.
I know somebody that knows somebody that knows something, or I walked by that, I've been to that bar before, I bowled there, that wasn't my night. But you want to talk to somebody about that, that's going to be at the Ramada Inn. So you're not necessarily a victim victim, a specific victim of what occurred, or somebody that was present when this occurred. And I mention that, and I mention that in this setting because as these things evolve, we have an investigation, and now this will slowly evolve over to a wellness and a resiliency conversation for the community and for the victims and others. And that's the information.
The county incinerator? That sounds rough.
That we want to make sure that folks are getting so that they can receive the help that they need. I would also say that once we clear these scenes, and I want to make sure I acknowledge this individual, Mike Halloran, who's a retired law enforcement officer out of Mass, owns a trauma service cleanup company.
Who are you talking about looking up?
And Mike gives us a shout and says, when you clear those scenes, I'm willing to come up.
Oh, Bo Shadden? I still talk to him. You're talking about the teacher? I still talk to him every once in a while. Before I changed my phone number, I don't think I've talked to him since then, probably because he doesn't have my phone number. But for like 10 years after I was out of high school, he would still send me a happy birthday text message. He had one of the first things he did in his class was like a tell me about you paper where you list like your hobbies, you played any sports, your age. It had some other stuff on it that he gave back to you, like who was the president, what's your favorite song right now, what's a gallon of gas cost, like when you were a freshman and you get them back when you're a senior. But he kept that list going, the birthday list. And as far as I know, he may still be texting people. I had to change my number because some of the Patriot Street Fighter people doxed me, gave out my phone number and address, got swatted a couple times. So I changed my phone number. But up until then, he would still text me every year on my birthday.
Donate the services of my company to clean all of these crime scenes, which, as you can imagine, or probably can't imagine, is an incredibly traumatic process to begin with. So we clear the scenes. We have all the evidence that we need. This company is going to come up, the Trauma Service Cleanup Company with Mike Halloran. They'll do the cleanups, and then we'll release the chaos in reference to the detectives, the major crime units. And that will be the next steps there.
Are they going to say anything about the note? Do they say anything about the note?
A little bit of information reference to the detectives, the major crime units, and all of our federal partners that are working with us there. We will be transitioning from our current command post back to the Lewiston Police Department. As you might imagine, the parking lot was a little bit different today than it was yesterday, right? So our command post, the next big step for the incident management team is to kind of demobilize. I think when these at and are they safe? So I do want to touch on a couple other questions that have been asked along the way. And with clearance from our prosecutors and our detectives, we're certainly more comfortable answering now based on the current outcome of what happened last.
They made it sound really weird. They said they found a note at his house, but they were unclear if it had anything to do with the motive for these attacks. So it makes it sound like he wrote like a cryptic style manifesto, like Unabomber style or something.
Night. So one thing, there's been a number of completely legitimate questions about a note that was found in his residence. So this is a paper style note. I'm not going to read it to you verbatim, but what it is it's a note to a loved one and is saying that this is the passcode for my phone. This is the bank account numbers. And I wouldn't describe it as a explicit suicide note, but the tone and tenor was that the individual was not going to be around and wanted to make sure that this loved one had access to his phone and whatever was in his phone. We're working on that now to get into the phone. That's one of those search warrants. That's one of those very specialized skills.
Yeah, right. They've already, if they found a note with a passcode for his fucking phone, they're already in that motherfucker. They can't introduce none of that shit into court, but they're already in that motherfucker. Guaranteed.
That our folks have, and then the bank codes to make sure that happens. That's not uncommon in suicide situations. You get long notes, you get very set up scenarios, but that's something that you asked about, and I do appreciate that. And again, we can talk.
Like that guy that showed up and killed his brother. He hadn't seen him in like 10 years. He's like, where's mom? She lives in Montana with so-and-so. And he's like, okay. Pulls out a shotgun, just starts shooting motherfuckers, burns the house down, gets in a shit out of the police. But before the police gets there, he's on the phone with somebody. He's like, get all the shit out of the storage unit. Get it out of the garage. Go to the bank. It's all going to be gone. Go drain the bank account. While the police are fucking showing up, tires squealing and shit.
Talk about that a little bit more now.
Wow.
There was a firearm found in the white Subaru station wagon. That was a long gun style. I don't not have the make and model. You could ask me, is that an AR?
For some reason, Mariah always runs into a lot of my former teachers, and they always ask about me. I don't see them that much. I guess because I don't really go out that much. But yeah, Mariah sees. I'm also not very. I don't look very approachable out in public. Most people are like, "Well, what the fuck's wrong with him?" Or I don't want to fucking speak to him. But they always ask Mariah how I'm doing.
15 years out of this. I don't know that, but I was asked yesterday specifically, did they find a gun? Did we find a gun in the car? And we did. And that was a long gun, and AR-15 is that in the white Subaru station wagon. We can talk about that a little bit more now. There was a firearm found in the white Subaru station wagon. That was a long gun style. I do not have the make and model. You could ask me, is that an AR-15 or is that this? I don't know that. But I was asked yesterday specifically, did they find a gun? Did we find a gun in the car? And we did. And that was a long gun. And to my understanding, that was the only firearm that was found inside the car at that time. I would expect, again, based on the investigation and the outcome, that when these impounded affidavits are released, there'll be search warrant lists and they'll have all kinds of stuff. What did we find and how many of this and how many of that? So that'll be much more detailed. So did you find guns in the house? Did you find guns on him? So that is something that we've been asked about, and I wanted to make sure that we covered that as well. Another question.
I think I'm super approachable.
I've had some conversations around this morning.
Assholes.
You know, if you talk about, is there a motive here, right? I think clearly there's a mental health component to this. We still need to do some research around trying to get access to certain records and things of that nature, which again, you could probably imagine is not just as simple as, hey, just calling somebody, hey, can you send me this thing? But what I would say is that based on what I've heard through conversations this morning, I don't see, or I'm told that we don't have access to any forcibly committed for treatment information reference to Mr. Card, okay? So you can volunteer, as an example, to go to a facility and seek treatment for months on end. But if you're not forcibly committed to seek that treatment, and very specific to treatment, right? Not forcibly taken for an evaluation is completely different than treatment.
That's what I was under the impression of. He was forcibly taken for an evaluation, stayed in there for a 2-week period. But the way they were talking about him, hearing voices, telling him to attack places, that's not going to be fixed in 2 weeks, okay? That might never be fixed. But I would be curious to see what their evaluation said, what they recommended. Was he on any new medication, stuff like that?
So there are a lot of very specific criteria around firearms. And are you a
was he
person,
reporting back?
Or prohibited person?
Because especially when you go on meds like that, was he reporting back? Was he calling back and saying, hey, my symptoms are this, or I'm still doing this, or I'm still doing? I would like to see those.
And what that looks like. So in this scenario, we have not seen to this point. I have not seen to this point that Mr. Card was forcibly committed for treatment.
I can't believe
and if that didn't happen.
Not forcibly committed for treatment, but maybe for the eval. Hell, the Army did that to me one time. Not only was I locked back in, like when I went to the VA, not only did they take me to a special area with bright red doors that some fucking gigantic orderly guy had to use 2 different keys to open behind 2 different deadbolts. He took me in there in the crazy wing, and then they put me. Oh, thank you. 10-6 Derek. I appreciate it. Not only did they take me to the first set of doors, we went down another hallway to another set of locked doors. The even crazier wing. When I first came in there was a couch, and this old guy, I'm sure he's probably dead now, he's pretty old. This old veteran sitting there on a couch out in the day room or whatever. And when I went to sit beside him, the woman there was like, and I was like, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. What do you mean? So I sat down beside this guy, and he looked dead over at me, and he said, my daughter's coming to see me today, you son of a bitch. I was like, all right, I'll just, I'm going over there. Okay. I'm going to be over there. Thank you for your service. Just walked away.
Then the NICS check, you could go into a firearms dealer who does all of their work, and the background check is not going to ping like this individual is prohibited. And something that's incredibly important for us to say, and for me to say, and I find myself saying it on a regular basis, just because there's appears to be a mental health nexus to this scenario, the vast majority of people with a mental health diagnosis will never hurt anybody. They won't hurt themselves. They're not a danger to the community. Based on percentages alone, there's a bunch of folks in here that have a mental.
No, not like other people play spades. I understand, like I know the rules of the game, and I've played before, like on a computer game, and even with some people I worked with, but not like I barely grasp the concept. I don't play spades. I play rook. That's what my family grew up playing, but I don't play spades like other people play spades, no.
Mental health diagnosis. I know law enforcement officers that have a mental health diagnosis. That doesn't mean they're a danger to the community. We certainly have people that reach that crisis level where that does occur, and we deal with those folks on a regular basis. Sometimes through involuntary forcible commitments, right? And sometimes not.
Involuntary forcible treatments, not just evals. So a lot of times, like a 24-hour hold and shit, it's just an eval. And if they see something wrong, there's steps and procedures you go through to force a treatment. I can't believe that when he made a threat to attack a military installation, even though it's just National Guard, it's still a federal military installation. When you step on that fucking National Guard base, Federal government owns it. It should be treated the same legally as like going to like fucking Fort Bragg. That he threatened to kill everybody there, and all they did was increase the patrols around the area. That's crazy.
Sometimes there's different levels of that mental health system, and that's a whole different conversation that can be quite lengthy. And I can tell you that law enforcement has been involved at this point for decades and heavily involved over the last 15 years or so. So I think that is the information
heavily involved in
that mental health on a regular basis. Sometimes through
he's just talking about
commitments, right? And sometimes not, at this point for decades and have been. That I know I wanted to come back and give you and I would also just say again that there's information that we think we can give lawfully and through our subject experts around prosecutions and all these other things. I may want to tell you something that I can't tell you, and that's just been the nature of the beast here along the way a little bit. I also want to mention this. This is a big deal. I was asked about cooperation of the family at one point, this
you know how people call a like you get Baker acted or whatever, people call it a 5150. When they like come out and do the 72-hour hold or what they call it, 5150. I've never heard anyone call it a 5150 until the other day when I was watching the goddamn thesaurus thumper, the pathetic patriot, and he's like, oh yeah, a 5150. That's interesting. It's the most awkward thing I think I've ever heard him say. And he said some weird shit, dude. He's dating his internet girlfriend, but I guess they don't see each other, and he hasn't talked to her in 2 weeks because his phone's broke and his mom's texting Johnny Depp. I mean, he says some weird shit, but when he said 5150'd, oh, that's crazy. Like, I was like, what the fuck? It just hit me in all the wrong places.
This family has been incredibly cooperative with us.
Like a reverse boner.
I think the first 3 people that called us to positively identify this individual based on the photos that were released were family members. And unfortunately, what happens in a scenario like this is that this happens, they're connected to this family, and that family has taken a great deal of grief, to include threats, people hanging out at their houses, and say, did they know? Is it their fault? Are they enabling? All of those things. Our investigation would have been incredibly, it would have been detrimental if they didn't come forward immediately to let us know who this individual was and how difficult decision is that to make when you've lost this.
By the way, Trainwreck Travis is back. We'll finish this. Trainwreck Travis is back. It's not gotten any better. I was trying to watch his video, but all I could hear was the ambient sound of his liver screaming for someone to put it out of its misery. And he had that Texas Dildo Warrior with him. And Cam got an argument on the show with him, whatever. But it reminded me, do you guys remember like 6 months ago, there was a certain Australian guy that was exposing me, remember? And he uploaded a video about how I'm a grifter, and it had to be edited about 6 times, removed, re-uploaded because all the information in it was wrong. It still came out with information completely wrong, saying that I was paying the rent for one of my mods or some shit. Information in it completely wrong, and that was supposed to be a whole like year-long series. Right? He was supposed to, I'm sure we'll have lots of content to cover on. This is going to keep going. It's going to be a while. I'll probably be covering this for the next year or so. And he did one video, then quit the internet. So I guess I've been exposed, boys. I knew it was coming. I just didn't know it was coming this quick. You know what I'm saying? I just didn't know it was coming this fucking quick. All right, guys, I'll let y'all go. I just wanted to hang out and kind of chill. Like I said, it was a late start, trick-or-treating night. I'm still kind of aggravated over the whole fucking grifter millionaire things. I can't afford to pay my fucking bills. These motherfuckers are literal millionaires. I don't fucking get it. Either way, thank you all for joining us. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thank you. There were a couple of donations coming tonight. I greatly appreciate that. That was awesome. And I don't even think I shouted out the link or whatever. So thank you guys for that. I know a lot of people are going through rough times too. That's why I hate even like there's another reason I didn't upload the YouTube video, the replay last night. Like, it's pretty shitty of me to complain when I get to, I work where I live at the campground, kind of get to set my own hours and work around my disability. Plus I get to come on here and make money, and other people are struggling too. But I don't know. I just get aggravated sometimes. I just want to make it. And I don't want the burden to be on a small group of my fans to like fucking support me. I would much rather have like fucking hundreds of thousands of fans that hardly ever donate, and it still supplies me. But Apparently that's reserved for the people who tell you what you want to hear, and not the people that tell you the truth. Anyways, thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate it. If you want to support the show while we're offline, you want to contribute to keeping the show free, you can go to coldbeer.fund. We greatly appreciate it. One more night on Kick tomorrow night. We'll get back to some normal stuff. No more, maybe just a little bit of mushrooms, okay? Maybe just a little bit. I'm going to go check them right now. Anyways, have a good night. Don't do anything that the pathetic patriot can say. They 5150'd you? Weird. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see everybody tomorrow on Kick Only for the last night of the week. Thanks, Vern. Appreciate it, Eric. Thank you, guys. It just gets to me sometimes. I don't know. I've been thinking about, I know a lot of people aren't going to like this, but I've been thinking about reducing the show frequency to certain days a week and maybe making other content, seeing if that takes off. I don't know. I need something to do an order of magnitude better than this. Instead of having 200 people watching me, I need 2,000. And that's just the reality of it. Especially in the economic times we are now. It's not like we've lost viewers. It's that often, at least monthly, I get emails of people like, hey, man, I can't afford this. I had to leave Patreon. I had this going on in my life. And I feel for those people. And I hate it for those people because what it means for them. But that's also where my income comes from while I do this. So, and I would love to give back to you guys have given me so much and helped me so much. I'd love to give back to you guys. The problem is when you're just scraping by, you don't have nothing to give back. Hopefully I can give back through the hypothetical, psychedelic, unofficial retreat. We'll see. Have a good one, guys. Nobody's even noticed since I've been back, or nobody's even noticed for like the last week that the chair's now gone from my video again. Look out. Whose chair's missing? No one even noticed. The whole chair's gone. Where's it at? I don't know. I fixed it back like I used to. I didn't like it in the background. It blocks too much behind me. I don't like it. That purple glow actually comes naturally. It's an award. It means I suck dick like a madman. Have a good night.